Chapter 1767. Xian Yu's two suzerain X/Myth 2 phase were the Cambrian Pegasus and the Deep Frost King Eel. In the battle against the swarm of insects, it did not consume much spiritual power. After all, no matter how ferocious the swarm was, their strength was still several levels lower than the Cambrian Petrified Fish and the Deep Freeze King Eel. The spiritual energy in Xian Yu's Cambrian Fish and Deep Freeze King Eel was mainly consumed when fighting against the Insect Queen, the ultimate weapon. When Lu Jie used the Thousand Insect Emperor Core's second function, the Insect Queen entered the Emperor recovery state. Lu O used the Great Devil's ability to absorb the Insect Queen's and genius attacks from the Emperor's revival. Therefore, even though Xian Yu seemed to be in a difficult position when fighting against the Insect Queen in its final weapon form, he was still able to defeat the Insect Queen. The Cambrian Pierfish and the Deep Freeze King Eel were both cut open by the Insect Queen's spear. However, the Cambrian Peiyu and the Deep Freeze King Eel only suffered the most basic skin injuries. There was still a lot of spiritual power in their bodies. From the start, Lu Yifan had the sacred source life form, the Sky Peach Bluebird, protect everyone in the team. After that, he did his best to assist Zhong Zhe and the bug swarm. The spirit energy inside Lu Yifan's body is almost depleted. However, Xian Yu was afraid that the sea region released by his main Fei would affect his teammates. Therefore, Xian Yu had been trying his best to suppress it. Now, Yan Ling, Kai Hua and Yu Changjian had been eaten by Lu O. Xian Yu had nothing to worry about. Xian Yu did not dare to be careless in the slightest when he saw the black and red energy shooting toward him. He immediately used the Cambrian Petrified Fish and the Deep Freeze King Eel to defend. It wasn't that Xian Yu hadn't thought of escaping to avoid this attack. However, according to his observations, Xian Yu noticed that the silver mirror in front of Black was reflecting the figures of the Cambrian Pegasus and the Deep Freeze King Eel. The black and red energy bullets reflected by the mirror would be deflected according to the direction of the mirror. No matter how fast the Cambrian Peiyu and the Deep Freeze King Eel were, it was impossible for them to escape the range of the mirror. Actually, Xian Yu had another choice. That was to separate the Cambrian Peiyu and the Deep Freeze King Eel. The silver mirror could only choose one of its Feis to shine on. This way, he could sacrifice one Fei to protect the other Fei. However, Xian Yu did not do so. Part of it was because Xian Yu was afraid that the mirror wouldn't be able to lock onto the two Feis. Black will turn the mirror to himself. On the other hand, Xian Yu wasn't willing to let any of his Feis die. Xian Yu planned to risk it. He wanted to see his two-peak Myth 2 Feis resist with all their might. Would there be a chance to block this dark red energy beam? At this critical moment, Xian Yu issued an order. The Cambrian Fish once again used Cambrian Descend. However, during the process of casting the Cambrian's Descent, Xian Yu asked the Cambrian Fish to carefully control the area of the sea. He didn't dare to let the sea get within 50 meters of Lin Yuan. He was afraid that the energy in the sea would be absorbed by the strange lotus leaves and lotus flowers again. This time, the Cambrian Fish did not use this area to attack. Instead, he used the water elements to form an even thicker armor on the surface of his reddish-purple shield. At the same time, he opened his mouth and unleashed his strongest attack, Cold Warrior Breath, at the dark red energy ball that was flying towards him. The Deep Frost King Eel twisted its body in the water, creating layers of strange ripples in the sea. These ripples intertwined, causing the sea to become more solid. At that moment, the Deep Frost King Eel used its exclusive skill, Extreme Deep Cold. It froze the entire sea. Lin Yuan saw Xian Yu use this method to bind himself. The sacred sword in his hand changed its original move. Xian Yu, the Cambrian Fish, and the Deep Frost King Eel, who were trapped in the ice, had become turtles in a jar. There was no possibility of escape. Lin Yuan didn't need to worry about using the silver mirror to aim. Thus, he cancelled the Silver Turtle Mirror Strike and unleashed his fastest attack so far. It was the sword skill obtained by absorbing the Gale World's crystals. 9 nails wind scissors stab. 9 spikes wind scissor stab, fire out 9 spikes at the fastest speed, condensed from the Gale World force. The destructive power of each spike increases, and each spike has the effect of a scissor, capable of tearing apart tough objects. After each scissor attack tears the target apart, it will automatically absorb the target's energy and inject it into the next attack. When all 5 attacks have energy feedback by tearing the target apart, the next 4 attacks will have an accelerated effect. Lin Yuan had initiated the Blood Force Extreme Battle through the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden. He had harvested the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden time and time again and obtained a lot of world crystals that could only be found in creation breed phase. Of course, the Miao family itself didn't have that many Emperor-class experts. Most of the Miao family's Emperor-class experts were nurtured by Lin Yuan's own investment of resources. Among the more than 20 world crystals that Lin Yuan had obtained from the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden, the Gale World Crystal Core produced from the Suzerain Class 1 Creation Lineage Wind Demon Dragonfly was actually not very outstanding. However, Lin Yuan had never had a strong resistance to wind elemental energy. Moreover, Lin Yuan had obtained so many movement techniques and combat skills through the body transcending memory grass. He also needed an affinity with wind elemental energy to improve his movement technique speed. That was why Lin Yuan chose the only wind-related Gale World Crystal Core among all the World Crystal Cores. As a result, the sword skill, 9 nails wind scissor stab, became a single-target sword skill with more offensive power than the Dark Crow Withering Strike. According to true data, the introduction of the 9 nails wind scissors stab highlighted its speed. However, Lin Yuan had never used it before and could not be sure how fast it could be. Lin Yuan was now using the 9 nails wind scissors stab. He hoped that the 9 attacks of the 9 nails wind scissors stab could hit the solid ice wall of the Deep Freeze King Eel first before the black-red energy light bullets. Through the sword skill's effect, it could tear apart solid objects and break the ice layer first. It could reduce the energy loss in the black-red energy light bullets. Even if it failed, it could be used when the black-red energy light bullets exploded the ice layer and attacked the Deep Freeze King Eel and the Cambrian Peatfish. It would have the effect of finishing off the attack. The Cambrian Peatfish's shield skin and the Deep Freeze King Eel's wrinkled skin all had extremely strong defensive abilities. It happened to be restrained by the 9 nails wind scissors stab's cutting effect. However, Lin Yuan found that he had still underestimated the sword skill speed. The 9 nails wind scissors stab was not as gorgeous as other sword skills. Lin Yuan's sacred sword, which had turned blue, turned into a sword mark in the air. This sword mark exploded with thousands of turbulent flows. The turbulent flows stirred up a gust of wind. The 9 dragonflies lined up in a capital letter. At a speed invisible to the naked eye, they shot straight toward the ice layer. The huge force pushed Lin Yuan back 50 to 60 meters. It happened to hit Wuxia. 17K. Chapter 1768. The collision caused Wuxia to stagger, but he firmly held on to Lin Yuan's shoulder with his hand. Lin Yuan wouldn't be thrown to the ground by this huge force. However, no matter how fast these 9 dragonflies flew, the black-red energy light bomb still exploded on the ice layer first. It blasted a big hole in the ice layer. When the black-red energy light bomb exploded on the ice layer, its momentum didn't decrease. The 9 dragonflies successfully overtook Lin Yuan. The first dragonfly used the cutting effect on the ice layer. The ice layer cracked from the inside, and a crack of nearly 20 meters was neatly opened. After the first dragonfly exhausted its energy, it immediately injected the energy it absorbed from the ice layer into the second dragonfly. It went back and forth. As the dragonfly in front would inject energy into the dragonfly behind. The dragonfly's destructive power on the ice layer was getting stronger. The fifth dragonfly broke the ice layer nearly 50 meters away. It revealed Xianyu, the Cambrian Pegasus, and the deep freeze king eel in the middle of the ice layer. According to the sword skill, the 9 nails wind scissors stabs effect, the first 5 attacks would get energy feedback by tearing the target apart. The attack and speed would increase again. The 4 attacks that had been sped up left 4 black scars in the air, causing the space to wrinkle. The 4 attacks stacked on the Cambrian Pegasus. The sword skill, 9 nails wind scissors stab, was special in the right way. It could stack the damage of 9 attacks. At that moment, the 9 nails wind scissors stacked damage absorbed the defensive effect of the Cambrian Pegasus and the deep freeze king eel. As a result, under the attack of the 9 dragonflies, the Myth 2 Cambrian pierfish instantly exploded into a bloody mess that filled the air. The 9th dragonfly had yet to dissipate. However, the color of this 9th dragonfly was extremely dim. It was hitting the deep freeze king eel through the Cambrian Pegasus body. Xianyu was a little stunned the moment the Cambrian Pegasus died. He was clearly the strongest existence on the field, and both his phase were at the peak of Myth 2. There shouldn't be any problem with his all-out defense. How did his defense get broken? It would have been fine if it had been blasted by the black-red energy light bomb. That black-red energy light bomb was Luo's all-out attack. Xianyu would only need to defend against this kind of attack that was at the level of a creation breed Fey. There were too many questions in Xianyu's mind that he couldn't understand. The Cambrian Pegasus' death caused Xianyu's spiritual energy to ache. The dragonfly, which no longer had any energy, did not cause any substantial damage to the deep freeze king eel. It couldn't even break the king eel's skin. But at that moment, the black-red energy light bomb had arrived. Apart from the first collision, he had been using the 9 nails wind shear stab to pave the way. The energy in the dark red energy light bullet did not suffer much damage. After Yan Ling's death, Kai Hua and Yu Changjian no longer had any value to the team. For the sake of the team's victory, Luo could eat the dead Yan Ling and Kai Hua with peace of mind. The monk was still alive, but Yu Changjian could only watch from the sidelines. Yu was killed. But Yu was still monk. Xianyu's trump card was the Hidden Sea Muse, a sacred source life form that had been forcibly raised to 7 stars by the goddess of compassion. The sacred source life form, Hidden Sea Muse, is very powerful. It has the ability to change the tide of the battle. Xianyu's sacred source life form, Hidden Sea Muse, has awakened the mermaid royal bloodline. Xianyu's strength will increase by a lot if he activates the Hidden Sea Muse's mermaid royal bloodline. After forcefully absorbing the myriad insect emperor core and fusing with it, the insect queen, which was in the emperor awakening state, and the special feline phase all-out attack, the insect queen had unleashed its emperor awakening state. As a B-rank spirit chi professional, Luo's spiritual power was almost depleted. Luo knew that if he didn't use devil manifestation, he would become a greater devil. He wouldn't be able to do anything. Hence, Luo planned to use his remaining spirit power to activate his sacred source life form. He would use the sacred source life form to protect Xianyu. At this thought, Luo pointed her finger in the direction of Xianyu. A golden chain came out of Luo's finger. He connected himself to Xianyu. Luo and Xianyu's figures started to blur. It was as if they were going to disappear from the origin world. However, Luo soon discovered that his sacred source life form had lost its function. After Gao Feng used the Yellow Spring Lily's ability to save Zhongzai's burning sky roar, he did not do anything else. He had been waiting for Xianyu and Luo to summon their sacred source life forms. He would use the memory-eating music box's memory magic scissors to seal Luo and Xianyu's sacred source lifeforms' functions. Gao Feng was using the memory-eating music box's memory magic scissors to seal Luo and Xianyu's sacred source lifeforms' functions. Xiaofan was using the memory-eating music box's memory magic scissors to seal Luo's sacred source lifeform's functions. Luo's sacred source lifeform was 4-star. The 6-star memory-eating music box used the memory magic scissors to seal Luo's sacred source lifeform's 2 functions. Luo's sacred source lifeform became a decoration. This sudden turn of events left Luo with no choice. He could only use the gift of the functional tooth he had obtained from devouring the Gorgon's tooth. He temporarily lent his greater devil power source to Qianyu. At the same time, he used the algae chain flow function he had obtained from Yen Ling's Gorgon's clam to link himself with Qianyu. He was prepared to contribute his life energy to Qianyu. This would allow Qianyu to use his greater devil power source and his own life energy to withstand the attack. Luo was the one who had released the dark red energy beam. Hence, Luo was very clear about how powerful the attack was. As long as Qianyu was willing to sacrifice the deep freeze king eel. Qianyu, who had fused with a middle-rank greater devil, and Gao Feng's assistance. He could withstand the attack. However, if Qianyu withstood this attack, he would suffer very serious injuries. However, Qianyu's injuries were not within Luo's consideration. Luo was assisting Qianyu so that he could summon the submerged sea muse while he was still alive. Then, he would use the submerged sea muse's function. He had to win the battle. After winning the battle, Qianyu's life or death was no longer within Luo's consideration. Luo's sacred source life form was sealed, and he could not use it. His spirit power was depleted. He could only rely on Qianyu. Given Gao Feng's current strength, he could not compare to Qianyu's submerged sea muse, which was a 7-star sacred source life form. Qianyu had been able to become a freedom envoy in such an intense battle because of the goddess of compassion's blessing. Another reason was that Qianyu's sacred source life form was too special. In short, the outcome of the battle depended on Qianyu. 7017K. Not being able to step onto the stage was one thing, but making such a rash noise was simply throwing the face of the Freedom Federation. When Li Su saw the young man's appearance, his brows furrowed even tighter. This was because Li Su knew very well that the second page of revival should be stored in this youth's body. Since the arrival of the Goddess of Mercy, things had deviated from Li Su's original plan. The second page of Renaissance had a grudge against Goddess Lian. Li Su did not have the ability to persuade Lian Shen not to cause trouble for second page revival after seeing him. Thus, Li Xian had privately dissolved the agreement between him and the second page of revival. He was prepared to ignore second page of revival. If he couldn't guarantee his own interests, why would he care about the interests of others? However, this did not mean that Li Su no longer needed the second page of revival. It was true that he had unilaterally dissolved the agreement with the second page of revival, but with the Hui Yao and the Goddess of Mercy at the back, there was no way out. He had to fight to the death. This way, the second page of revival would be able to better complete his plan. But now, there was no trace of the second page of revival. This youth's memory had been maintained before he was parasitized by the second page of revival. At that time, this youth had just arrived at the Radiance Federation. He only knew that Qianyu was leading the team, but he had never seen the two highnesses, Li Su and the Goddess of Mercy. But now, he had suddenly appeared here and met two His Majesties in a row. This made this youth lose his composure. However, just as this youth was about to calm down and greet Li Su and the Goddess of Mercy, a drop of golden red water shot towards this youth as the Goddess of Mercy's fishtail flapped easily. The golden red water droplet was as magnificent as a gem. But after it shot towards this youth, the youth actually exploded into a dazzling peach blossom in an instant. This youth might not have reached the level of a highness favored or a highness disciple in the Freedom Federation. However, to be able to enter the Independent 100 sequence meant that he was a true elite genius. Just because he lost his composure a little, he was killed by the goddess of mercy without hesitation. It was as easy as pouring a cup of water. The goddess of mercy's actions made the legs of the other independent 100 sequence members tremble. They were no different from the youth who was killed by the goddess of mercy. If that youth could be killed so easily, then it would be the same for them. The Moon Empress and the Highnesses of the Radiance Federation were already aware of the various styles of the Freedom Federation. But seeing this situation now, they could not help but narrow their eyes. The Moon Empress' gaze was fixed on the Goddess of Mercy. She could faintly see from the Goddess of Mercy's face. The Goddess of Mercy seemed to be angry about something. However, this anger was concealed very well by the Goddess of Mercy. At the same time, the Goddess of Mercy could kill the independent 100 sequence members in this situation. She did not have much sense of identity and honor towards the Freedom Federation. Therefore, she would not be angry because the Freedom Federation's team was at a disadvantage. The Goddess of Mercy's gaze was fixed on Qianyu. Was the Goddess of Mercy angry that Qianyu had been attacked by her disciple, Lin Yuan? The Moon Empress could not guess this. But if the Goddess of Mercy was really angry that Qianyu had been attacked by Lin Yuan, then she should be looking at Lin Yuan. But why was she looking at Qianyu? It was as if Qianyu had provoked the Goddess of Mercy. As for the Goddess of Mercy's action of killing the independent 100 sequence members, only the Radiance 100 sequence members present had seen it. The Star Web audience had no way of knowing. As the venue for the team battle was too big, there was no way to use one screen for the broadcast. However, the battle with the Freedom Federation's envoy did not seem like a Radiance 100 sequence selection. They could watch the battle from any perspective. If the Freedom Federation's envoy's perspective was used, the movement of the Freedom Federation's envoy would be exposed. Fighting in such a complicated terrain would make use of the environment to conceal themselves. It was an excellent battle method in itself. Therefore, in order to make it convenient for the audience to watch, Lin Yuan, Lu Jia, Zhong Zhe, Lu Yifan, and Gao Feng each carried a special Star Web card. This Star Web card allowed the Star Web officials to view the battle from the perspective of 5 people. They would broadcast this battle that concerned the dignity and honor of the Radiance Federation. 7017K Chapter 1770 Mercy Deity's act of casually killing a member of the 100 sequence did not cause a stir on the Star Web. However, the Radiance 100 sequence members who had witnessed everything were unable to calm down for a long time. At the thought of their 13 holiness, the Radiance 100 sequence members felt a surge of warmth in their hearts. At this moment, the black and red energy light bomb had already exploded on the deep freeze king eel that was in front of Qianyu. Qianyu had obtained Great Devil Luo's energy source and life energy. At this critical juncture, he summoned his other Fae. Qianyu was taking the elite route, so he didn't have a lot of Faes. However, each of Qianyu's Faes was at the pinnacle of myth too. This giant purple jellyfish clearly possessed the bloodline of the Nether River jellyfish. However, the Nether River jellyfish bloodline hadn't been completely activated yet. Moreover, this jellyfish's bloodline had mutated quite a bit in the Netherworld River jellyfish bloodline. In terms of bloodline, it was very high quality. But before this jellyfish could display any combat ability, Qianyu used its soft body as a shield. Anyway, he had already lost one of his main Faes, the Cambrian Pier Fish, and could not keep the Deep Freeze King Eel. One more Fae wouldn't make a difference. As long as he could survive and return to the Freedom Federation. The compassionate goddess would always be able to help him obtain the secret medicine from the foolish god that could heal spirit chi professionals' damaged psyche and allow them to contract Faes again when their Faes died. Qianyu actually had other reasons for doing so. That was to fuse with the sacred source life form, the hidden sea songstress. He had to ensure that he had a good physique. If he was heavily injured and fused with the submerged sea songstress, his combat power would also be greatly reduced. Although Qian Yu had been targeted by Lin Yuan and had suffered serious injuries, he was still able to withstand Lin Yuan's attacks. However, Qian Yu had been carefully analyzing the battle situation. As a freedom envoy, Qian Yu's talent had to be acknowledged. Qian Yu had already seen the weakness of Lu Yifan, Zhong Zhe, and Lu Jie. Gao Feng was a pure support. He had already summoned his sacred source life form to restrain Yan Ling. After Yan Ling's death, Lu O's sacred source lifeforms were also restricted. However, a pure support was still a pure support. Qian Yu understood best why Hui Yao had raised the condition that only one person could be attacked before the other four fell. Currently, Hui Yao's side looked unscathed, but the only one who had the ability to fight was black. At the thought of this, when the black-red energy bullets hit the Deep Freeze King Eel and his jellyfish Fei, the Deep Freeze King Eel's body suddenly exploded. Qian Yu merged with the sacred source life form, Hidden Sea Muse. The black and red energy beam took away the Deep Freeze King Eel's life. The jellyfish Fei was severely injured by the explosion and was on the verge of death. It basically had no combat strength. At this moment, the deep blue water suddenly spread out with Qian Yu as the center. Lu Yifan exclaimed in disbelief and he sensed the sacred source life form aura on Qian Yu's body. It's a 7-star sacred source life form. Only a 6-star sacred source life form would understand how difficult it was to raise a sacred source life form star level to 7 stars. Many people who were lucky enough to contract a sacred source life form had been stuck at a bottleneck between 3 stars and 4 stars. However, from 3 stars to 4 stars, there was only a small threshold for a sacred source life form to cross from the infancy stage to the growth stage. From the growth stage to the mature stage, which was 6 stars to 7 stars, was a huge threshold. Most people who contracted sacred source lifeforms found it difficult to cross this threshold. Even if they could, it would take many years of accumulation. At present, among the current generation of Radiance envoys, no one's sacred source lifeform had crossed the threshold from 6 stars to 7 stars. From the growth stage to the mature stage, it took a large amount of resources to reach 6 stars. For example, His Majesty Cicada Cry had used his sacred source lifeform's intent-dispelling wind origin power to raise Gao Feng's sacred source lifeform to 6 stars. However, it had not reached 7 stars. This was enough to show how difficult it was to cross the threshold from 6 stars to 7 stars. However, Qian Yu's sacred source lifeform had reached 7 stars. A 7-star sacred source lifeform did not just have one more function than a 6-star sacred source lifeform. A 7-star sacred source lifeform's life grade had been upgraded. A 6-star sacred source lifeform's function did not have many restrictions on a 7-star sacred source lifeform. For example, Gao Feng's memory-eating music box could easily control Yan Ling, Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, and Lu O's sacred source lifeforms. However, there was no way to restrain Qian Yu's sacred source life form. Forcefully restraining it might not have the same effect. However, there would definitely be a backlash. This was why all the experts were working hard to raise the sacred source lifeform star level. Star level was the king of sacred source lifeforms. Originally, if there was a large amount of water elemental energy around him and the water elemental energy was hostile towards him, then he would be blessed by the Blue Lotus. Since Lin Yuan was blessed by the Blue Lotus, lotus leaves should be growing under his feet, and a lotus flower should be blooming. However, the deep blue sea had already covered the entire dual area. The bamboo monarch had to intervene to prevent the deep blue sea from spreading. Shueshua, who was lying in Lin Yuan's hair, sighed. The sacred source lifeform's function is a kind of ability that is recognized by the world's will. Even the blessings of the heavenly spirits cannot go against the ability recognized by the world's will. Although the Blue Lotus blessings could not absorb the water elemental energy, Lin Yuan had the Blue Lotus blessings and Princess had absorbed the vast sea world. Lin Yuan now had the ability to breathe underwater. He did not need to float to the surface like Zhong Zhe, Lu Jia, Lu Yifan, and Gao Feng. At that moment, Lin Yuan, who was hovering in the sea, looked like a life form that should have lived in the deep sea. Qian Yu was still fusing with the demon in his body. However, Qian Yu's appearance had changed greatly. Qian Yu's legs had become a fish tail. The tail of this fish was very wide. It was a strange purplish-blue color. With a light flick of the fish tail, a turbulent undercurrent would appear in the sea that had suddenly appeared. The scales on the fish tail were similar to fish scales and snake scales. Qian Yu's upper body had a metallic purplish-black luster because he had fused with the demon. Fine scales appeared on Qian Yu's waist, abdomen, and neck. Even the ghost tattoo on his cheeks was covered by a few fine scales. Qian Yu's golden short hair had turned into long, purplish-blue hair that fluttered freely in the sea. The long hair was slightly curled and was similar to the color of the fish tail. Lin Yuan was not in the mood to pay attention to the changes in Qian Yu's appearance. Looking at the mermaid Qian Yu, Lin Yuan suddenly had a strange feeling. Looking at the mermaid like Qian Yu, Lin Yuan suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart. 17K. Chapter 1771. Lin Yuan could not help but feel a trace of contempt for the transformed Qian Yu. Lin Yuan, who had such a thought, felt rather strange. Lin Yuan had always been kind to others and had empathy. When it came to non-principled issues, he would consider it for others. It could be said that apart from the people from the Apex faction, the Whale Ocean Trade, who had betrayed the Radiance Federation back then, there was no one else. Lin Yuan had never despised anyone. He had never felt such disdain towards anyone. However, it was also unnatural for Lin Yuan to feel contempt for Qian Yu. Qian Yu's strength was very strong. He was the Freedom Federation's third-ranked freedom envoy. In terms of strength, Lin Yuan was not qualified to despise Qian Yu. If not for Blue Lotus Blessing, Lu Jia would not have been able to use the 1000 Insect Emperor Core to allow the Insect Queen to enter the Emperor Awakening state. Lin Yuan's sword skills happened to work again. It killed Qian Yu's two main Feis. It caused the main Fei that Qian Yusen had summoned to be injured. Lin Yuan simply couldn't beat Qian Yu. Moreover, Qian Yu had fused with an 8-star Sacred Source life form. Lin Yuan, who only had a 4-star Sacred Source life form, could easily sense the might and pressure of an 8-star Sacred Source life form. Even so, Lin Yuan still looked down on Qian Yu. Lin Yuan thought about this feeling and realized that it was the same feeling Red Thorn had when it looked down on 2-winged and 4-winged fairies. This was a kind of disdain that came from instinct, or perhaps it could be said that it came from his bloodline. Lin Yuan suddenly recalled that he and Bai Lan would turn into mermaids when they fused together. Compared to before, Bai's current strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. The aquamarine elemental shellfish in the Spirit Lock spatial zone produced water attribute heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls. Before this, Azure had to share it with the floating island whale. But now, after the floating island whale hatched, it needed to consume a certain amount of pure water and wind elemental energy. However, it mainly absorbed pure spiritual energy. Hence, the heavenly maiden-grade water elemental pearls, apart from the ones that were traded to Yin Lin, were not worth it. They were all digested and absorbed by Bai Lan. Azure's current strength had reached Diamond X, but her grade was still legendary. It was because it was too special for Blue to evolve into a fantasy breed Fey. The blue formed by the 12 water columns must be mastered from the strange water. Only then could one become a fantasy breed. When Yin Lin had exchanged the heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls with him, she had brought him 3 kinds of top-notch mutant waters. Lin Yuan found another one after searching for it. Now, Bai Lan had comprehended 4 characteristics from the top-tier mutated water. Apart from that, Blue's strength was also related to the amount of power of faith in the shrines between his 2 souls. Since he had discovered the power of faith, he had been thinking of ways to fill it up. During the Blood Oath Extreme duel between the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden and Sky City, Lin Yuan had specially asked Tian Ningning to find other reporters to report this Blood Oath Extreme battle on a large scale. However, the previous incidents were just small skirmishes. Although it had allowed him to obtain a large amount of power of faith, it was not comparable to what came after. Black had displayed his strength on the star web, breaking the Celestial Stairway's record consecutively in defeating Lu Shuang, obtaining a lot of faith power. As compared to the power of faith obtained during the Radiance 100 sequence selection, this power of faith was much weaker. 6 black wings spread out from his back, forming a yellow sand castle in the sky, and summoning a sea of flowers to block the insect swarm. The power of faith in Lin Yuan's shrine increased rapidly. In particular, after the general slaying battle, the power of faith in Lin Yuan's shrine had increased by half. In the current team battle, the power of faith in Lin Yuan's shrine was increasing at an unimaginable speed every minute and second. If Lin Yuan's shrine was like a cluster of shining golden nebulae, then Lin Yuan's shrine was like a galaxy. In that case, Lin Yuan's shrine now seemed to have formed a Milky Way. Even Lin Yuan himself could not estimate how much power of faith he had obtained. In short, Lin Yuan was now truly using his strength to harvest the faith of the entire Radiant sect. Lin Yuan had not fused with Bailan for a long time. At present, in this sea area, there was no Fey more useful than him fusing with Bailan and turning into a mermaid. Lin Yuan knew very well that this sea area restricted Lu Jia, Gao Feng, Zhong Zhe, and Lu Yifan's mobility. When he fused with Bailan, not only was it more suitable for fighting in the sea area, but it could also control the sea area. Only by controlling the sea area could Lin Yuan protect Lu Jia, Gao Feng, Zhong Zhe, and Lu Yifan, who could not swim, from Qian Yu's attack. After transforming, Qian Yu was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he looked at Lin Yuan with a mocking and tyrannical expression. Bloodthirsty said, "You killed 2 of my Feys, and because of you, my 3rd Fey was also severely injured. Now, it's time for you to pay the price." Lin Yuan's expression did not change at all when he heard Qian Yu's words, and he did not care about Qian Yu. During this process, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check Qian Yu's Sacred Source life form. Sacred Source Name, Hidden Sea Songstress, Sacred Source Species, Source Family/Sacred Source Species, Sacred Source Star Grade, 8 stars, Sacred Source Type, Water Function Frowny Face Mermaid Sea, using the power of the mermaid bloodline, a body of water that can only be controlled and breathed freely through the mermaid power. When any living being is in the mermaid sea, they will hear the mermaid song. The mermaid song has the ability to confuse targets or living beings that are confused by the mermaid song will fall to the bottom of the mermaid sea and become nutrients for the mermaid sea. Myriad sea brambles, using the fishtail to release the mermaid power in the sea area, thorns that match the mermaid power will grow at the bottom of the sea. The thorns have a series of effects such as blood-sucking, armor-piercing, poison, paralysis, and sharpness. Targets that are entangled and stabbed by the thorns will hear the mermaid's song more clearly. At the same time, they will be cursed by the mermaid and become half-mermaids. Bubble Legend, when receiving a fatal attack, it will automatically turn into bubbles and disperse the damage to the sea area. The damage will be shared by the sea area itself and other living beings in the sea area. By consuming the mermaid power, targets with mermaid bloodlines weaker than itself in the sea area can be disintegrated into bubbles by consuming the sea area's energy. Lin Yuan discovered that as an 8-star sacred source lifeform, the hidden sea songstress' 3 functions were extremely powerful. Ever since Lin Yuan had been in the sea area created by the hidden sea songstress, he had heard the faint singing. However, the singing did not affect Lin Yuan at all. Logically speaking, the mermaid's singing should be very pleasant to listen to. However, when Lin Yuan heard the mermaid singing, it sounded like the chirping of pheasants. It was difficult to listen to. 17K. Chapter 1772. Just as he was wondering how such a voice could charm other lifeforms and make them fall to the bottom of the sea, through genius's exclusive skill, the interconnection tale, Lin Yuan realized that apart from Gao Feng was not the only one. Intoxicated expressions appeared on the faces of Lu Jia, Zhong Zhe, and Lu Yifan. However, it depended on the difference in soul power, mental energy, and spiritual energy. The degree of intoxication on their faces was also slightly different. Fortunately, Zhong Zhe had been tormented by the curse, so his mental power and soul force were much stronger than ordinary experts. The Insect Queen was a spiritual type Fey, and its spiritual energy couldn't be distributed to Lu Jia like Genius, which possessed the spiritual expansion ability. At the same time, he could also give Lu Jia some feedback. That was why Lu Jia and Zhong Zhe didn't sink to the bottom of the sea. Lin Yuan knew that Gao Feng wasn't affected because Qian Yu hadn't done anything to him due to the rules. Lin Yuan hastily performed Calm Mind many times on Lu Jia, Zhong Zhe, and Lu Yifan. What eased the situation of the three of them? He found that all three functions of the hidden sea muse mentioned the power of merfolk. Merfolk power belonged to the power of the merfolk bloodline. After Lin Yuan and Bailan fused, they would also become merfolk. When Lin Yuan transformed into a mermaid, the sacred source lifeform had once recognized him as its ruler. He was not sure if he had the appearance of a mermaid or if he really had the power of a mermaid's bloodline after transforming into a mermaid. Legend had it that the soul remembrance whale was only close to the deep-sea mermaids. Only the deep-sea mermaids could see the soul whale. Not only could Lin Yuan see it, but he had also contracted it. The thought soul whale was very close to Lin Yuan, even before the contract. Through this, he felt that he should really turn into a mermaid after fusing. He had the power of the mermaid in his body. Qian Yu found that after he spoke to Black did not respond. Instead, he helped his teammates to avoid being charmed by the mermaid's voice. Qian Yu immediately raised his fishtail. Qian Yu's tail emitted a fishy and unclean mermaid power that made Lin Yuan feel like it was spreading to the bottom of the sea. Lin Yuan knew that Qian Yu was going to use the hidden sea muse's second ability, sea thorns. The myriad sea brambles had a very powerful function. It strengthened the submerged sea muse's control over the sea. The effects of the thorns, whether it was life steal, paralysis, poison, armor penetration or sharpness. The black brambles that had already begun to grow in the sea turned into evil spirits of the sea. The control of the mermaid's song was extremely strong. Once he was pricked by these thorns, he would listen to the mermaid's song. He would probably be charmed in an instant. That was not all. Being stabbed was equivalent to being cursed by the mermaid. He had heard from his master, the Moon Empress, that the pressure between merpeople's bloodlines was stronger than that of fairy source-type lifeforms. Those half-mermaids and ordinary fish could be easily used as slaves. These black thorns did not only wrap around him, but they also wrapped around Zhong Zhe, Lu Yifan, Lu Jia, and the others. With that in mind, Lin Yuan decided to merge with Bailan and test his strength against Qian Yu. Just as the black brambles were about to wrap around Lin Yuan's ankle, the black brambles suddenly stopped. Suddenly, the seductive mermaid song in the sea suddenly stopped, as if someone had grabbed its throat. A majestic and dignified yet exceptionally ethereal singing voice rang out across the entire sea. Qian Yu's 8-star sacred source life form, hidden sea songstress, had produced a bluish-purple sea. But in an instant, with Lin Yuan as the center, the entire sea turned azure. Sunlight shone directly on the surface of the sea, forming mottled golden pillars of light under the sea. It gave rise to a sense of hierarchy in the azure seawater. At that moment, the pity god's body trembled. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, ecstasy, and intoxication. The expression lasted for a full 3 seconds before the compassionate god tried her best to hold it back. Zhongzhe, Lu Jie, and Lu Yifan were no longer affected by the seductive mermaid song. When they saw Lin Yuan in the sea, they all revealed a shocked expression. Unlike Zhongzhe, Lu Yifan, and Gao Feng, this was the first time Lu Jie had seen Lin Yuan in his mermaid form. However, Lu Jie discovered that Lin Yuan's mermaid form was completely different from before. Streams of water formed in this azure sea. These streams of water seemed to turn into logs that built palaces at the bottom of the sea. It was as if they were welcoming the arrival of a new emperor on behalf of the entire sea. Lin Yuan was also very surprised. Ever since Blue Lotus had blessed him, he had never fused with Bailan. Blue Lotus had once said that her blessing could purify the bloodline of any living creature in the sea. Lin Yuan could feel a strange power within his body that was constantly recovering and growing stronger. This power was transforming Lin Yuan's mermaid form. First, Lin Yuan's hair had grown longer, still the purest azure color. But the ends of his hair were like waves, plated with a layer of dazzling golden blue. This golden blue color was mainly blue, with gold as a supplement. The vast blue completely suppressed the luxurious gold. If Lin Yuan's hair had previously fallen to his calves, now, Lin Yuan's mermaid form stretched nearly 3 meters. It was so dazzling along with the current. Lin Yuan's facial features became softer, and a few blue scales glowed with rainbow light appeared on his face. The ends of his eyes were like 2 drops of tears. However, these 2 drops of tears did not soften Lin Yuan's aura. Instead, they set off a touch of nobility. The waves were like gauze, and layers of gauze scattered within 50 meters of Lin Yuan. A fish tail that people couldn't look away once they saw it stretched out of the gauze formed by the waves. The fish tail swayed, and this layer of gauze floated up with the current. Although Lin Yuan's fish tail was different from Qian Yu's fish tail, the difference was not very big. However, Lin Yuan's fish tail was the same color as the scales on his face. The scales on Qian Yu's fish tail had a trace of snake scales. The scales on Lin Yuan's fish tail were like petals of a sea epiphyllum. Every time the elegant and agile tail fin moved, it seemed to brush away a layer of lead from the entire sea. The bluish-gold color of the fish tail was the same as the tip of its hair, and the entire sea willingly submitted to this bluish-gold color. If the most beautiful thing in the sky was the moonlight, then Lin Yuan was the only beauty in the sea that corresponded to the moonlight. Lin Yuan raised his eyes and looked at Qian Yu. For some reason, Qian Yu felt that his bloodline was being suppressed by an extremely powerful force. The black thorns that grew from the bottom of the sea had long since withered. Qian Yu found that this sea that his sacred source life form, Qian Yu, had produced was no longer under his control. It was no longer under his control. However, this was not what Qian Yu was most afraid of. What Qian Yu feared the most was not whether he would lose this duel. He was afraid of Lin Yuan's bloodline itself. 7017K. Chapter 1773. Qian Yu had given it his all and used up all his trump cards. He had even used a sacred source life form to absorb the royal mermaid bloodline in the hidden sea songstress. It was not because Qian Yu felt that it was a matter of life or death. Instead, he wanted to use this achievement to exchange for a higher status and more resources when he returned to the Freedom Federation. Qian Yu had always had a plan. No matter what, even if he was crushed by his opponent, the goddess of compassion would not watch him die. If not for the fact that the goddess of compassion was worried about his safety, she would have personally come to Huiyao after receiving his information. Qian Yu was a smart person and could sense the goddess of compassion's attitude toward him. She did not dote on him like Na Na did on Luo. She was treating him well with a purpose. This made Qian Yu certain that the goddess of compassion was treating him well for a special purpose. At first, Qianyu did not know what that purpose was, but the goddess of compassion later requested that he only contract water-type phase. She also did her best to improve his sacred source life form, the hidden sea songstress. She had repeatedly emphasized the need to protect the royal mermaid bloodline in the hidden sea songstress. Qianyu suddenly realized something. The goddess of compassion had taken a liking to him since he had contracted the hidden sea songstress. In other words, the trace of mermaid bloodline in his body was useful to the goddess of compassion. That was why he was favored by the goddess of compassion. But now, Qianyu's confidence suddenly collapsed. Black also had the mermaid bloodline. Moreover, this mermaid bloodline did not come from a sacred source life form. This suppression from his bloodline made it impossible for Qianyu to use the submerged sea muse's ability, myriad sea thorns. To use the myriad sea thorns function, he needed to consume the mermaid power in his body. Due to the difference in bloodlines, mermaids with higher bloodlines had strong control over mermaids with lower bloodlines. When a mermaid with a higher bloodline released its mermaid power in the sea, it would cause the mermaids with lower bloodlines to lose their control over the sea. Sacred source lifeforms that relied on bloodline power to fight were often more powerful than other sacred source lifeforms of the same grade. However, they were very afraid of the suppression from a higher bloodline. Qianyu had been eating the benefits of the hidden sea songstress's sacred source life form. In the Freedom Federation, he had defeated many younger generation members who were stronger than him. He sat firmly in his position as the envoy of freedom. But now, Qianyu finally suffered a backlash. In terms of bloodline, Black was obviously more useful to the pity god than he was. Qianyu did not even dare to look at Lian deity's gaze. He was afraid that the pitiful goddess would treat him as an abandoned pawn. Before Lin Yuan fused with Bailan, he could not help but despise the mermaid Qianyu. However, now that Lin Yuan had also transformed into a mermaid, this kind of disdain turned into contempt after Lin Yuan fused with Bailan to become a mermaid. He even felt that Qianyu standing in front of him with this kind of attitude was a kind of arrogance that didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. This made Lin Yuan, who already despised Qianyu, feel a wave of anger. Lin Yuan raised his hand and stuck his fingers out of the gauze formed by the waves. He pointed at Qianyu from afar. A scorching current suddenly surged towards Qianyu. This scorching stream was merely Lin Yuan's normal ability, rushing stream, which he had used with the origin moving water. However, due to the power water soul, he had fused one of the 12 dark blue water pillars with the top-notch burning sea boiling water. It had obtained the scorching characteristic of the top-notch burning sea boiling water. The scorching referred to not only the temperature but also a certain evaporation ability, which could quickly dehydrate the target. It was extremely lethal to creatures with water in their bodies. This torrent containing the scorching characteristic meandered towards Qianyu. Qianyu originally had the ability to swing his fishtail and easily swim away to avoid this scorching sea torrent. However, the pressure of the bloodline made Qianyu tremble. Before the mermaid bloodline in Bailan's body evolved, the power of faith could be easily sensed by the outside world. But now that the mermaid bloodline in Lin Yuan's body had been enhanced, the power of faith would be blocked by the mermaid bloodline. At the same time, the mermaid bloodline would be enhanced when it absorbed the power of faith. The power of faith in Lin Yuan's shrine was constantly pouring into the mermaid bloodline in his body. This made the aura of Lin Yuan's mermaid bloodline stronger and stronger. The suppression of the bloodline made Qianyu unable to move at all. A scorching current rushed towards Qianyu. This scorching current, which was not much worse than the top-notch extraordinary flames, made Qianyu's body instantly bulge with dense blisters. The blisters burst, dyeing the seawater around Qianyu's body purple-red. The scales on the blue-purple fishtail also fell off under the scouring of the hot current. It made Qianyu look abnormally embarrassed. Originally, the mermaid Qianyu could not be compared with the mermaid Lin Yuan. Now the gap had become even bigger. It made Xian Yu as small as dust in front of Lin Yuan. The star web had been in a complete uproar since Lin Yuan transformed. Mermaids themselves were a kind of beautiful creature. Both men and women were incomparably beautiful. The moment Xian Yu transformed into a mermaid, the issue of position was eliminated. It had already amazed many star web netizens. However, when Lin Yuan transformed into a mermaid, those star web netizens who were amazed by Xian Yu immediately saw the gap. Lu Shuang had been doing a simple commentary, but since Lin Yuan transformed, she had been in the live streaming room for more than a minute. She could not come back to her senses for a minute. The other star web netizens were not much better than Lu Shuang. Buddhist Black Rabbit, Tian Tian, Tian Tian. I've always been a straight man, but why can't I take my eyes off black now? What should I do? Mommy, I'm in love. Purple Star, you're not alone, and so am I. I strongly appeal to Master Spirit Craftsman to make Black's current image into a figurine. My name is Skyless. I don't know if I should change my name to Black or Lin Yuan now. I used to think that Black's Radiance 100 sequence title should be Silver Mask, Six-Winged Angel, or something like that. Later, I voted for Silver Mask Miracle. But now I think Black's title must be related to mermaids. Wind blows, Black's mermaid image satisfies all my fantasies about mermaids. Compared to Black, Xian Yu is simply a rag. Jadeite button, doesn't anyone care what method Black used to become a mermaid? We don't know how many tricks Black has up his sleeve. The star web's focus was basically on Lin Yuan's appearance. Firstly, it was because Lin Yuan's appearance was hard to not be infatuated with. Secondly, it was also because Lin Yuan had shown full suppression in the battle. It seemed that there was no suspense in this battle. 7017K. Chapter 1774. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Lin Yuan. The pitiful goddess lowered her eyes. Her eyes moved quickly as if she was thinking about something extremely important. She seemed to be making a decision about something important. After a long time, the pity goddess raised her head. However, her brows were no longer furrowed. Instead, they were abnormally relaxed. Her eyes no longer fell on Xian Yu. Instead, she looked at Lin Yuan in amazement. A strange emotion in her heart was constantly rising under the guidance of her bloodline. This emotion was extremely strange to the pity goddess. At the same time, it formed an invisible bond with Lin Yuan's aura. The pity goddess never thought that there was such a pure mermaid bloodline in this world. It had reached the level of the mermaid royal family. However, it would take a few months for the bloodline to stabilize. Otherwise, if she suffered a serious injury, it was very likely that her bloodline would fall. It would become the peak of the mermaid royal family's bloodline. At that time, it would be difficult for her bloodline to transform into the mermaid royal family's bloodline. Logically speaking, if she had encountered such a situation before, the pity goddess would have made up her mind without thinking. No matter what, she had to take Lin Yuan away by force. This behavior was in line with the pity goddess's usual thinking. Since he had his eyes on something, he had to keep it for himself. Otherwise, she would have stepped on the path to heaven and awakened her life providence in vain. But now, Lin Yuan's bloodline made the pity goddess dare not do such a thing. The pity goddess only wanted to solve her curse so that her strength could be improved again. However, the way to remove the curse was to obtain the mermaid royal family's love. It would be good if this young man did not hate her if she kidnapped him by force. How could he fall in love with her? Therefore, the pity goddess decided to do as she had previously thought. It seemed that before leaving the Radiance Federation, she had to have a good talk with the Moon Empress, the only two who had awakened her life providence. As for Qian Yu. Who was Qian Yu? The pity goddess had never heard of him. Lin Yuan, whose mermaid bloodline had transformed, could clearly feel his control over the sea. The feeling in the water seemed to make him more comfortable than on land. All the water elements were jumping and competing to communicate with Lin Yuan. Through the feedback of these water elements, even without using his eyes, he could sense any subtle changes in the entire sea region. The bluish-purple blood in Qian Yu's body seemed like filth in this azure sea. They were swept away by the current and sank to the bottom of the sea. Qian Yu knew very well that as long as the mermaid blood in his body was suppressed by black, it would be difficult for him to even move. During this period, Qian Yu tried to activate the few mermaid royal bloodlines. However, the activation of the mermaid royal bloodline made Qian Yu feel that the suppression on his bloodline did not improve much. In the end, Qian Yu could only grit his teeth and undo the fusion with the sacred source life form, Hidden Sea Muse. The moment the fusion was broken, Qian Yu, who had been possessed by the medium devil, could move freely. Right now, Qian Yu had nothing else to rely on. That half-dead jellyfish Fei had been killed by Lin Yuan's manipulation of the water flow when he had transformed. Qian Yu had no choice but to summon his last contracted life form, which was a four-winged water-type fairy source-type life form. It was called the Vortex Demon Spirit. A petite fairy source-type life form with two pairs of fin-like wings appeared in the sea region. 5 huge vortexes appeared around Qian Yu's body. Qian Yu glanced at Lu Jia with joy. Qian Yu had not summoned his source-type life form, the Vortex Demon Spirit, because Lu Jia's insect queen was a 6-winged fairy. Fairies and mermaids were the same. The bloodline of the superior had an extremely strong suppression on the bloodline of the inferior. However, after fusing with the myriad insect emperor core, Lu Jia's insect queen had fallen asleep. The sleeping 6-winged fairy had lost the suppression on the 4-winged fairy's bloodline. His fairy source-type life form, the Vortex Demon Spirit, was at the pinnacle of Suzerain/Myth 2. It was one step away from evolving into a 6-winged fairy. Under such circumstances, he could still maintain a high-quality trump card. The 5 people from Radiance must be in despair. Through Qian Yu's observation, he found that Lu Yifan, Zhong Zhe, Lu Jia, and Gao Feng's expressions had indeed darkened. However, Black, who had transformed into a mermaid, had a faint smile on her face. This smile caused the 2 teardrop-like scales in her eyes to ripple with a moving luster in the seawater. This absolutely beautiful smile made Qian Yu's heart suddenly jump up. Just as Qian Yu was circulating his spiritual energy and preparing to summon the Fae, he thought Qian Yu was going to take out another shocking trump card. In fact, if it were a pinnacle of Myth 2 Fae, it would not be easy for him to deal with. He still had 2 sword skills that he had not used. One of them was the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike, which would greatly increase in power in the sea region. His Sacred Source life form was now a class 4 Sacred Source life form, and his Princess mode and Sacred Sword mode had an additional function. However, the new function in Princess mode was still the same as Princess Dress. It could only play a supporting role. However, the price of using the second function in Sacred Sword mode was too great. Unless necessary, Lin Yuan was not willing to use it easily. However, if this pinnacle 4-winged fairy source-type life form was Qian Yu's final trump card, Lin Yuan felt that he should not need to use the second function in Sacred Sword mode. As a fairy source-type life form, Red Thorn's bloodline was at the pinnacle of 6-winged. Even if it stayed with the Insect Queen, which had just evolved into a 6-winged Insect Queen, when Red Thorn released its bloodline, the Insect Queen would tremble, and its strength would drop by 80%. Lin Yuan and Red Thorn's contract was rather special. It was a contract through blood. Red Thorn and Lin Yuan's bloodline were connected, so Lin Yuan could mobilize Red Thorn's pressure as a pinnacle 6-winged Fae. Lin Yuan lifted his fishtail in the sea region. He swam in the direction of the Vortex Demon Spirit. Due to the Blue Lotus's blessing, the vortex demon spirit's attack would suddenly be absorbed by the flower bud before it could land on Lin Yuan. Therefore, the vortex demon spirit's attacks did not cause any damage to Lin Yuan. 10 huge water pillars had protected Wuxia, Lu Yifan, Gao Feng, Zhong Zhe, and the others in the sea region. Lu Yifan had recovered a certain amount of spiritual power and summoned the Yinyang 2 modes ox and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams goat. They each controlled their 2 fays and began to support Lin Yuan. After Qian Yu removed his mermaid state, he was worried about how to get close to Lin Yuan. After fusing with the demon, his body was extremely strong. Only in close combat would he be able to display his true strength. 70-17K. Chapter 1775. At the same time, he could use his ability to fuse with a middle-rank devil. The vortex demon spirit could not harm Black. However, the vortex demon spirit could stop Lu Yifan from assisting Black. Before the demonized Qian Yu and the mermaid Lin Yuan could engage in close combat, Qian Yu's eyes lit up. Qian Yu suddenly discovered that his 4-winged fairy source-type life form, the vortex demon spirit, was trembling. As a source-type life form, the vortex demon spirit was spiritually connected to Qian Yu. Previously, when Qian Yu fused with the hidden sea muse, his bloodline had been suppressed in front of Black. He couldn't even move, like a lowly clown. But now, Qian Yu had clearly removed his fusion with the hidden sea muse. However, he had summoned the last of his reserve combat power. This Suzerain X, Pinnacle Myth 2 water-type fairy source-type life form, was after the vortex demon spirit. Qian Yu once again felt the feeling of being suppressed. This feeling made Qian Yu recall the humiliation just now. It also made Qian Yu very puzzled. How did Black use the bloodline power to suppress the vortex demon spirit in its mermaid form? No matter how pure and powerful Black's mermaid bloodline was, could a smelly mermaid bully a fairy? To make the vortex demon spirit so afraid that it almost lost its will to fight, even Lu Jia's 6-winged insect queen couldn't do it. However, Lin Yuan did not give Qian Yu time to find out the reason. Lin Yuan had already used his hand to grab the vortex demon spirit. Even though it was a distance away from Lin Yuan, the vortex demon spirit was intimidated by the bloodline power in Lin Yuan's body. Now, in Lin Yuan's palm, the vortex demon spirit could clearly feel the suppression of Red Thorn's bloodline. The vortex demon spirit was so terrified that it could not respond to Qian Yu's communication. At that moment, Qian Yu had already punched at Lin Yuan's face, which had stunned the entire sea region. Previously, Goddess Lian had wanted to help Qian Yu get rid of Hui Yao's 5 members several times. She was afraid that Qian Yu would use the thin mermaid royal bloodline in the hidden sea muse. Now, Lian Shen wanted to make a move again. This time, Lian Shen's target was Qian Yu, whom she had always regarded as her hope. Goddess Lian really wanted to slap Qian Yu into smithereens. Qian Yu was simply presumptuous to actually dare to slap Lin Yuan's face. Goddess Lian's original intention had always been to pursue the greatest benefit. If it weren't for that, Goddess Lian wouldn't have been able to stand out and become Her Holiness in the Freedom Federation. He embarked on the path to ascension and awakened his life providence. However, due to her bloodline, Lian Shen was unable to think rationally. The mermaid bloodline in her body would dominate Goddess Pity, and everything would revolve around Lin Yuan. Because the mermaid race was a race whose entire race was dedicated to the mermaid royal family. For the Mer people, the decree of the royal family was an imperial decree, an oracle. Lian Shen's heart was moved by the expression on Lin Yuan's face. The combination of Qian Yu and a middle-rank devil was indeed powerful. Qian Yu's fist was covered in purple scales and protruding bone spurs. Even if it could not reach the full power attack of a myth-I Fey, it was comparable to a Fey that had just entered the myth realm. Moreover, Qian Yu's punch did not only rely on his physical strength. At the same time, there was also the curse effect on the surface of the fist. Qian Yu's middle-rank devil was called Tang Long Ghost Bath. It usually needed to be fed with the essence blood of a water-type dragon species Fei. In the water region, its strength would be greatly enhanced. This devil could be said to be extremely suitable for Qian Yu. However, the entire sea region was controlled by Lin Yuan's mermaid bloodline. With the mermaid bloodline's complete control of the sea region, Qian Yu tragically discovered that he was clearly in the water. He could not rely on Tang Long Ghost Bath's ability to rely on the sea region to recover himself. The saddest thing was that this sea region was created by Qian Yu himself. Fortunately, Tang Long Ghost Bath's ability also had a curse effect. As long as the opponent's flesh was broken and the energy was injected into the target's body, it could then seize the water element energy in the target's blood. Thus, it could dry up the opponent's blood. This curse effect, which destroyed the body, enhanced Qian Yu's endurance. It also created Qian Yu's prestige of resisting the Class 4 Water World Dimensional Rift alone. Qian Yu had originally planned everything well, but there was one thing that he had miscalculated. The merman that he had transformed into looked weak, but he was by no means a pushover. Lin Yuan had transformed into a mermaid because he had fused with blue. The Diamond X/Legend Blue's body could now transform into a 10,000 square kilometer water region. It was just enough to submerge 1/10 of the Radiance 100 sequence assessments venue. As the source water, Blue's body was composed of water. Now that he had fused with Blue, each attack could hit with a power equivalent to the entire water region's weight. Moreover, his attacks would automatically carry the characteristics that Blue had mastered. Moreover, he could still use the movement technique and fighting style that he had obtained through the heaven and earth phase and the body transcending memory grass in the water region. He still had a part of his current strength that he had not used. He could not only use Blackie's exclusive skill, Spirit Purity Burst, with his fists. If he wanted, he could use Spirit Purity Burst with any part of his body. Seeing Qian Yu's punch toward his face, Lin Yuan did not even dodge. He shook his head gently. His blue-gold hair drifted in the sea region, wrapped in the water current, and hit Qian Yu. The moment the golden blue hair collided with Qian Yu's fist, Qian Yu felt as if he had punched a glacier. Qian Yu was shocked by the tremendous force that came from the strand of hair. At that moment, Lin Yuan's slender fishtail flipped. The fishtail was wrapped in a layer of pure spirit qi, and it accurately hit Qian Yu's back. Lin Yuan's attack was pleasing to the eye, but it suddenly hit Qian Yu, who vomited a large mouthful of blood in the sea region. In the blood, there were dark red fragments mixed with it. Obviously, this attack had damaged his internal organs. Qian Yu was stunned by this attack, but Lin Yuan did not stop. The fishtail drew a beautiful arc and landed on Qian Yu's body. It made Qian Yu feel as if all the bones in his body had cracked. As a freedom envoy, Qian Yu completely lost the ability to resist at this moment. This was not to say that Qian Yu was not strong, but Qian Yu felt that this youth in front of him firmly restrained him in all aspects. Basically, all his abilities were targeted by this youth. Qian Yu felt that this youth was specially nurtured by Hui Yao to target him. Fortunately, Qian Yu was in the state of fusing with the middle-rank devil in his body. Otherwise, Qian Yu would have been smashed into meat paste by Lin Yuan's attack. Since the start of the battle between Qian Yu and Lin Yuan, Luo had not continued to attack. He just quietly watched from the corner. 7017K Chapter 1776. During this period, Luo had wanted to contact the phaseless beast several times. However, Luo could clearly feel that the phaseless beast was still alive, but he had lost the ability to communicate with it. Looking at Qian Yu, who had lost the ability to resist, Luo was not prepared to make another move. Luo now had a contract with the 4 great devils in the entire Devil Cathedral, so he still had a trump card that he had not used. However, Luo felt that it was useless to use this trump card now. He had to struggle in the face of certain defeat. That was stupid. Luo was waiting for the pity goddess to save Qianyu. Given his special identity, the pity goddess would definitely take him away when she took Qianyu away from the Radiance capital. However, after waiting for a long time, Luo found that there was no sign of the pity goddess making a move. Upon seeing this situation, Luo looked at Qianyu with a complicated expression. Didn't Qianyu swear that he was very important to the pity goddess? Did the pity goddess regard him as a sacrificial pawn? Of course, even if the pity goddess did not make a move, Luo was confident that he would not die. After all, he was different from Qianyu and Han Qi. Regardless of whether he was a loved one or a disciple, he was still an outsider. Without the chain of blood relations, how could he truly treat him as his own? However, Luo did not want to trouble his mother. He lured his mother to the Radiance royal capital, the enemy faction's base camp. When he attacked Qianyu, he realized something. If he used Little Black's spiritual essence explosion to launch an attack, he would be able to injure Qianyu and even deepen Qianyu's injury. However, it was difficult to kill Qianyu at once. In the distance, Lin Yuan saw Luo looking at him with a malicious gaze. He swung his tail and shot Qianyu toward Luo like hitting a baseball. At the same time, he raised his right hand high in the sea region. In an instant, the entire Blue Sea region boiled. He was going to use Blue's elite Current Severance. Current Severance was very simple. Its effect was to cut off the body and turn the water elements carried by the body into turbulent water energy to attack the target. Blue's body was only the size of 10 water tanks. With just a single skill, Broken Flow displayed its full offensive power. Now, Blue had been eating the angel elemental pearls to increase her strength. The amount of water elements contained was simply too large. Turning into a stream of water and attacking the target was far more lethal than using Blackie's exclusive skill, Spirit Purity Burst, through its fishtail. Under Lin Yuan's command, the seawater formed a huge vortex with him as the center. A pillar of azure water shot up into the sky. The water level of the entire sea continued to drop. Seeing that the water pillar that soared into the sky was about to hit the shield of the mountain river Set Bells, the fourth major treasure of the Radiance Cauldron State. The Moon Empress waved her hand gently, and the shield propped up by the mountain and river Set Bells immediately opened up above the water pillar. He did not block the path of the water column. This pillar of water passed through the breach on the mountain river Set Bells and charged straight into the sky. Almost everyone in the royal capital was watching this duel on the star web. If someone didn't log into the star web and was busy in the real world, they would not be able to enter the star web. At a glance, one could see the endless water column in the sky. This azure pillar of water seemed to connect heaven and earth. At that moment, Lin Yuan pointed in Luo and Qianyu's direction. This water pillar quickly moved in Qianyu and Luo's direction. When it moved close to Qianyu and Luo, Lin Yuan threw Qianyu's vortex demon spirit forward. It swung its tail and hit the vortex demon spirit. The whirlpool demon spirit smashed into the water pillar. Like a sharp sword, it sliced the water pillar into two. Then, the huge water pillar that connected heaven and earth lost its support and suddenly smashed down toward Qianyu and Luo. The moment the vortex demon spirit cut the water pillar, it was already seriously injured by the heavy pressure of the water pillar. Lin Yuan was no longer using Red Thorn's bloodline aura to suppress this vortex demon spirit. Even if Lin Yuan no longer used Red Thorn's bloodline aura to suppress this vortex demon spirit, this vortex demon spirit will no longer be able to cause any more waves. Looking at the water pillar that was attacking her and Qianyu, Luo knew that she must not be hit by this water pillar. Otherwise, even if she fused with the greater devil, she was likely to suffer some irreparable injuries. Luo already understood that this attack was not elemental damage at all. Instead, It was an area of effect physical damage caused by a huge body of water falling from a high altitude. Once this body of water smashed into the ground, the water in front would be squeezed by the water behind it, and the water would splash up with explosive force. It would probably be able to easily deform a radium-uranium steel plate. After confirming that Lien God was not going to make a move, Luo took out a silver ring from her spatial storage equipment. This ring contained a huge amount of spatial energy. It was a treasure made from the body of a sacred source life form. According to the conditions that the Radiance Federation had proposed before the competition, they were not allowed to use any treasure. They were not allowed to use any prized artifacts. Luo openly using a prized artifact was a violation of the rules. This duel was a simulation of the 10,000 Nations Conference. During the 10,000 Nations Conference, if any contestant violated the rules, the contestant's side would be judged to have lost the competition. It could be said that from the moment Luo took out this spatial equipment, the Freedom Federation side lost the duel. Luo injected the remaining spiritual power in her body into the silver ring. A spatial door formed in front of Luo. This spatial door cracked wider and wider. The spatial runes on it became more and more obvious. In the end, these spatial runes turned into fast-moving silver tadpoles. The silver tadpoles spread out in all directions from the portal, causing the space within the portal to be tightly connected. As the Lord of Radiance, the Spacetime Elder was the first to change his expression. The Spacetime Elder's contracted sacred source lifeform was the ethereal Mother Shellfish. The 10-star sacred source life form, the ethereal Mother Shellfish, could sense the fluctuations and tremors of space. The Spacetime Elder sensed a huge amount of dense spatial energy. This spatial energy exceeded Luo's current strength. The aura emitted by the silver ring had reached the level of an 8-star sacred source life form. This meant that this silver ring-shaped treasure was an 8-star spatial treasure. This meant that this silver ring-shaped treasure was an 8-star spatial treasure. It was unknown where this spatial door led to. At that moment, a crack opened from the inside of the spatial door. A pair of slender hands reached out from the door. The fingernails were about an inch long, and they were dyed a strange dark red. The hands suddenly clenched. With the palm as the center, within a 30-meter radius, a pinkish-purple shield was formed. After the shield appeared, it immediately enveloped Luo. 7017K. Chapter 1777. At that moment, Qianyu, who was next to Luo, and the vortex demon spirits that Lin Yuan had used to cut off the water pillar, were like dirty things. They were pushed out by the pink-purple shield energy. The pink-purple energy shield looked crystal clear, and a gem-like luster appeared on it. It was like a precious and fragile item. However, after the water pillar smashed into the pink-purple shield, the pink-purple shield easily resisted the impact of the water pillar. The splashing water could clearly deform the radium-uranium steel plate. However, when it landed on the pink-purple shield, it did not even make a sound. The impact on the surface of the shield was completely resolved by the energy inside the shield. After this blow, Lin Yuan did not launch another attack. He had seen Luo use the artifact. Under the attack of Broken Waterfall, Qianyu and the Vortex Demon Spirit were protected by the pink-purple energy shield. Later, when it was squeezed out by the pink-purple shield's energy, the power of the Broken Waterfall had slowed down. The fairy source-type Vortex Demon Spirit was dead, but Qianyu was still hanging on. However, Lin Yuan knew that this breath was forcibly held on by the middle-rank devil in Qianyu's body. Lin Yuan had not summoned the source sand back. The source sand had been spread on the seabed. When Qianyu had been hit by the broken waterfall, Lin Yuan had let the source sand use its exclusive skill, Sand Spirit Acceptance. It had used the dark bamboo shadow snake snatched from Han Qi as a killing weapon against Qianyu. The dark bamboo shadow snake's venom had already invaded Qian Yu's body. Qian Yu had a certain resistance to the dark bamboo shadow snake's venom when he was healthy. However, given Qian Yu's current physical condition, no matter how slow the effect of the dark bamboo shadow snake's venom was, it would soon penetrate the bone marrow through Qian Yu's broken body. Lin Yuan had crippled the Freedom Federation's current third-ranked freedom envoy in this battle. Since he had seen Luo's foul, his side had already won. He had completed his mission and defended the Radiance Federation's dignity and glory. He was not qualified to intervene in the following matters. He had to hand it over to the Radiance Federation's 13 Majesties. After the seawater subsided, everyone suddenly realized that a charming woman with her hair tied up in a high bun was already standing beside Luo. If one looked closely, they would find that Luo's eyes and mouth were 70% similar to this woman's. At that moment, a ray of moonlight landed beside Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress figure was not tall, but she firmly blocked Lin Yuan behind her. The coquettish woman with her hair tied up high glanced at Qian Yu, who was on the verge of death. He then looked at the Lien god in astonishment, not understanding why the Lien god would be so indifferent to Qian Yu's life. As soon as Li Su finished casting Flow Severance, he dispelled his fusion with Bailan. Under normal circumstances, if Bailan wanted to completely transform into a water body, it would consume a lot of spiritual energy. Bailan herself did not possess such immense spiritual power. As Bailan's contractor, Lin Yuan basically poured all the remaining spiritual power in his body into Bailan's body. Only then did the blue water completely release itself, allowing it to unleash this attack. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for a Diamond X/Legendary Crystal Blue to deal such powerful damage. Fortunately, Lin Yuan got rid of his mermaid state. Otherwise, Na, who knew Goddess Lien very well, would understand why Goddess Lien's attitude towards Qian Yu had changed so drastically. After Na looked at Lin Yuan in astonishment, she looked at Li Su with a rather unfriendly gaze. This matter was planned by Li Su. Although this situation was not within his expectations, Li Su was not surprised. It was no wonder. However, seeing Luo in such a sorry state, Na vented half of her anger on Li Su. Back then, Na had agreed to let Luo come because of the benefits that Li Su had promised. But now that the duel had turned out like this, Li Su's plan was facing complete failure. Under such circumstances, the benefits that Li Su had promised could no longer be fulfilled. At that moment, Na heard a cold voice in front of her. Is this the Freedom Federation's attitude towards a battle? The battle was proposed by you, and the method of battle was also chosen by you. Now, the ones who are openly violating the rules are still you. The Freedom Federation must give the Radiance Federation an explanation. As she spoke, the Moon Empress released her aura. In an instant, a bright moon hung high in the sky. After this bright moon appeared, it was quickly dyed with a layer of blood red. Long whips of moonlight chains fell from the sky. In an instant, all the elemental energy and spiritual power in the entire Radiant Sacred Hall were sublimated by the moonlight. Even the space was tightly locked by the moonlight. The entire world had become a forbidden zone without any energy. Na frowned and looked at the Moon Empress. Na didn't know what had happened before. However, due to Luo's one-way summon, he knew that Luo was in danger and came here. Unexpectedly, Luo had no choice but to summon him when she was in danger. It was because of the duel with the Radiance Federation's younger generation. At a time like this, no matter how he looked at it, he was in the wrong. With Na's strength, she had just stepped onto the path to ascension and had yet to awaken her life providence. He was not fit to call himself a god. At most, he could only call himself a demigod. However, Na did not believe that the Radiance Federation's majesties would make a move on her. Li Su and Lien Shen were still there. Even if the Radiance sect had more than 5 powerhouses who had stepped onto the path of ascension and awakened their life providences, the Radiance sect would not be able to defeat the Radiance sect. It was impossible for them to defeat the 3 of them in a short time. Not to mention Lian Shen and Li Su, as long as she released the phaseless beast, she could at least squeeze out the Radiance royal capital's providence. Every expert who stepped onto the path of ingress had methods that others could not hope to match. Even if such experts perished, they could cause an irreversible disaster if they went crazy before perishing. The Radiance Federation had always been weak, but the Freedom Federation had never dared to make a move on it. It was because the Radiance Federation had that old man. In such a situation, the most common way was to compensate with a sum of resources or pay a price to make up for it. However, no matter what it was, she would definitely have to bleed. Although Lian Shen and Li Su were also there, she was indeed the one who broke the rules. Just as Na Na was thinking about what to say, the Lian Shen spoke. Luo violated the rules by using the artifact. It is our Freedom Federation that violated the rules. Your Radiance Federation won this duel. Our Freedom Federation has never had the habit of being a sore loser. Now that there is a problem, we are willing to compensate. The Lian Shen's words almost made Li Su's eyes pop out. Li Su really wanted to ask the Lian Shen if there was something wrong with her head. If there wasn't something wrong with her head, how could she say such righteous words? Chapter 1778. Li Su had thought of simply saying that this player from Radiance had cheated. In order to prove that Black did not cheat, Radiance had to show all of Black's methods. This way, they could at least obtain complete information on Radiance's top geniuses for future countermeasures. As a result, Pity God's words were out. What he wanted to say and what he wanted to do. It was destined not to be done. In the entire Freedom Federation, Li Su felt that Pity God was the most selfish and overbearing after becoming a god. Pity God was a Class 5 creation master, but her resources were never distributed to other eminences like the Mirror God and the Foolish God. The Goddess of Pity, who was extremely selfish and selfish, was not a person who could calmly accept victory and defeat. Not only was Li Su puzzled, but Na Na was also puzzled. In fact, because Na Na knew Pity God better than Li Su, she was the most shocked. Just now, Qianyu had completely stopped breathing. Even Tang Longyu, a middle-rank devil, had separated from Qianyu's body. Pity God was indifferent. Na Na couldn't say anything else after hearing the Compassion God's words. She could only look at the Moon Empress. Pity God was the first to speak. The strongest Pity God could be said to represent the Freedom Federation's will. The 13 eminences, including the Moon Empress, saw Lin Yuan stand up and begin to crush Qianyu and Luo. On one hand, they were shocked by Lin Yuan's strength. On the other hand, they knew that the ending would not be simple. In a while, there would definitely be an accident. In fact, the eminences of Radiance were also struggling in their hearts. At this time, the Moon Empress' strength had broken through and was qualified to call herself a god. The Moon Empress and the old man worked together, in addition to themselves and the heaven-blessed mansion's favored spirit. Under the circumstances of paying a huge price, it was possible to make the Freedom Federation's 3 eminences stay here. However, there was still no news from the Tower Cannon. They did not know who the 2 8-page members of the Tower Cannon were. They also did not know if the Tower Cannon and the Freedom Federation had any secrets. Therefore, for the safety of the royal capital and the people in the nearby big cities, the eminences of Radiance did not dare to take this risk, and they could not take this risk either. Right now, Pity God's suggestion was indeed the best choice for Radiance. At this moment, no one could understand what Pity God was thinking. Pity God forcibly shifted her gaze away from Lin Yuan. The reason why Goddess Lian did this was simple. Goddess Lian was using her own method to express her goodwill to Hui Yao. This was so that it would be more convenient for him to communicate with the Moon Empress and the old man from the Radiant sect. The goddess of mercy had never cared about anything other than herself. Goddess Lien cared so much about Lin Yuan because of the attraction of the bloodline, which made her do so spontaneously. On the other hand, it was also because Lien Shen wanted to find a breakthrough opportunity from Lin Yuan. Although she had awakened her life providence, she wasn't satisfied with her strength stopping there. The Compassion God's words had completely admitted the Freedom Federation's failure. Even though there was a small interlude, the entire Star Web audience had seen it with their own eyes. However, Huiyao had already announced their victory. The entire Star Web and the Star Web audience had been suppressing their emotions for a long time. He was completely released. Poison Beauty, who had always been sharp with her words and mercilessly ridiculed the audience in the live broadcast room, had always given people the image of a venomous sister. But at that moment, Poison Beauty was crying in the live broadcast room. Poison Beauty did not shed tears in the live streaming room to attract attention. It was also not because she was touched. Instead, when she felt this glory, Poison Beauty's body surged with hot blood. It was this hot blood that made Poison Beauty's nose turn sour uncontrollably, and her eyes filled with tears. This feeling was hard for Poison Beauty to describe. However, Poison Beauty was not the only live streamer who felt this way. Lu Shuang took a deep breath in the live streaming room. She could no longer suppress the hot blood surging in her heart and shouted, "Black awesome! Long live Huiyao!" Lu Shuang's long-suppressed roar ignited the enthusiasm of the other viewers in the live streaming room that could no longer be suppressed. Then, she roared, "Black awesome! Long live Huiyao!" Such bullet comments flooded the screen for a long time. Only then did people start to discuss the battle just now. Piggy, Lin Yuan is simply too strong. He had directly killed the third-ranked envoy of freedom of this generation. Ah! How did Lin Yuan do it? From today onwards, I must work hard. I will strive to be like Lord Lin Yuan and stand on the land of the Radiant Sacred Hall. Glacier Setting Sun, the person above is so ambitious. After becoming a Radiance 100 sequence member, you might really have the opportunity to meet Lord Lin Yuan face to face. Adapt to circumstances. I apologize. I repent. Previously, I thought that Lord Lin Yuan was useless and was controlled the whole time. I didn't expect that Lord Lin Yuan was the one who established this battle. Wolf of the North, why do you all call him Lord Lin Yuan? I think it's most appropriate to call him Lord Black. Lin Yuan is a stranger to us, but we watched Black Treasure grow up. I unknowingly revealed a male mother's smile. Thunder, I think that although Lord Black's performance was the most dazzling, the victory was the result of the joint efforts of the 5 people in the team. They are the glory of Huiyao. Set sail, what to do? Ever since I saw Lord Lin Yuan in his mermaid form, I don't feel that my husband beside me is fragrant anymore. Your little fairy is with me, hey. I'm the same as you, but completely opposite. Ever since I saw Lin Yuan in his mermaid form, I don't feel that my wife beside me is fragrant anymore. Not only Lu Shuang and Poison Beauty's live streaming rooms, but the atmosphere in the other live streaming rooms was equally enthusiastic. Previously, no one had the opportunity to see a battle of such a level. No one knew the danger that the 100 sequence members and Huiyao envoys could face. But now, these people understood. When they couldn't see it, it was these people who carried the burden and propped up Huiyao's backbone. At this moment, looking at Lin Yuan, Lu Jia, Zhong Zhe, Gao Feng, and Lu Yifan. Everyone was enjoying the glory that belonged to each of them. They were also witnessing this glory through the Star Web live streaming method. Lan Sun looked at Lin Yuan with a rather shocked expression. How old was Lin Yuan now? Although Lin Yuan's ability seemed to completely restrain Xianyu, to be able to kill Qianyu in a restrained situation was definitely an ability that others didn't have. At that moment, Lan Sun saw Yin Lin tug at his sleeve. Seeing the expression on Yin Lin's face, Lan Sun immediately knew why Yin Lin called him. Lan Sun couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Lady Yin Lin, you're simply too good to the Radiant Moon Empress disciple. 7017K. Chapter 1779. Lan Sun didn't really want to do this, as doing so would only drag the Azure Federation into this conflict. However, after pondering for a moment, Lan Sun still stood up. As the fourth Azure envoy, Yin Lin was clearly inclined toward the Radiance Federation from the beginning. Since Yin Lin had already made her choice, it was not good for Lan Sun to say anything else. At the same time, this battle allowed Lan Sun to see many of the internal problems of the Freedom Federation. The Freedom Federation's internal problems had allowed the Azure Federation and the Radiance Federation to develop and breathe for so many years. At present, the internal problems of the Freedom Federation were becoming more and more serious. Objectively speaking, Lan Sun felt that it was better to work closely with a certain majesty of the Freedom Federation. It was undoubtedly a better choice to cooperate with the entire Radiance Federation. Thinking of this, Lan Sun spoke. Since the compassionate goddess has made it clear that the Freedom Federation has lost to the Radiance Federation, it just so happens that I'll hand over the resources in my hands to Huiyao for now. As he spoke, Lan Sun took out 3 pieces of spatial equipment. Looking at the 3 pieces of spatial equipment in his hands, Lan Sun couldn't help rubbing his hands together. The 3 pieces of spatial equipment contained an enormous amount of wealth that could not be measured. Apart from the 3 top-grade water that Lan Sun had taken out as the banker back then. The sea monster that Yin Lin had made a promise to was from the mystic realm of Lantis and had awakened its natal water. The Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation's wager of resources was the main prize. Li Su was brimming with confidence when he made the bet. He took out 10 adult island whales. 3 of the island whales had even reached the strategic S rank. There were also 1,000 tons of spiritual ingredients from myth breed phase. In the end, the Moon Empress took out 20 adult island whales to let Li Su gamble for her Satan seed. 3 of them had reached the level of a strategic S rank. At the same time, there were 2,000 tons of spiritual ingredients from myth breed phase and 50 tons from creation breed phase. 500 law crystals, 50 world crystals, and 10 immortal bodies that had been purified. The items that the Moon Empress had taken out were all rare Creation Master resources. If he was lucky, he could find those old experts who had been stuck at the Master Realm for decades. 500 law crystals, 50 world crystals, and 10 immortal bodies that had been purified. It could easily allow these veteran experts to break through a small realm. They might even be able to nurture dozens of Emperor-level experts and a few Undying-level experts. It could be said that the amount of resources that the Moon Empress had taken out was something that many medium-sized federations couldn't afford even if they wanted to. However, this was only the wager between Li Yi and Moon Queen. Goddess Lien took out 150 complete fairy bloodlines. There were also 200 different types of insect-type carcinoma phase and 5,000 bronze/epic phase. There were also 100 bronze/legend phase. Among the bets, epic and legend phase were considered class 4 and class 5 creation masters resources. Apart from the federation that had class 5 creation masters, the other federations didn't have any bronze/legend phase. An insect-type carcinoma phase was not considered precious. However, 200 different types of insect species carcinoma phase were different. Ordinary factions did not have the ability to collect so many types of insect-type carcinoma phase. Furthermore, among the insect-type carcinoma phase, every insect-type carcinoma phase had a different destructive power. Hence, the danger level of these insect-type carcinoma phase was different. After Lan Sun's investigation, the 200 insect species carcinoma phase that the compassionate god had taken out had been filtered. However, there were also some insect-type carcinoma phase with extremely powerful abilities. There was a youth from the younger generation that could use the insect-type carcinoma phase as a means of attack and nurture them. The 200 insect-type carcinoma phase that the compassionate god had given to the Huiyao would definitely be able to increase that youth's strength by a huge margin. After all, the Radiance Continent's insect-type carcinoma phase were completely different from the Freedom Continent's insect-type carcinoma phase. Compared to the insect-type carcinoma phase, Lan Xun was more concerned about the 150 complete fairy bloodlines. Obtaining something like the Fey bloodline was both cruel and required a lot of resources. The cruel part naturally referred to the need to kill the fairies and extract their bloodlines. The consumption of resources wasn't just limited to nurturing the fairy source-type lifeforms. There were also spirit chi professionals with incredible spiritual energy. If the fairy source-type lifeforms wanted to be nurtured, the most basic requirement was to be contracted by a spirit chi professional. Furthermore, the fairy bloodline might not even be a Class 5 creation master. There was no guarantee that the extraction would be 100% successful. This also meant that the 150 complete fairy bloodlines would require at least 150 fairy source-type lifeforms and 150 geniuses with incredible spiritual energy. Once the fairy source-type lifeforms died, the spirit chi professionals who had contracted the fairy source-type lifeforms would suffer a spiritual injury and become crippled. This was something that Lu Jie understood the most. Lan Xun didn't know the effects of using 150 complete fairy bloodlines at the same time. However, 3 or 4 complete fairy bloodlines would allow a 2-winged fairy to become a 4-winged fairy. If these 150 complete fairy bloodlines were used by a 4-winged fairy, it might be able to forcefully grow another pair of wings and become a 6-winged fairy. After absorbing so many fairy bloodlines, the 4-winged fairy might be able to forcefully grow another pair of wings and become a 6-winged fairy. Even if Lu Jie's 6-winged fairy used 150 complete fairy bloodlines, its bloodline would also have significant improvements. The compassionate god had taken out so many stakes. Correspondingly, apart from the 300 uncontracted fairy source-type lifeforms that the compassionate god had mentioned, the Moon Empress had to take out the corresponding resources. As a result, the Moon Empress had taken out the purified eternal heart. Because of this purified eternal heart, the Moon Empress had asked the compassionate god to add 5,000 more bronze/epic phase to the original stakes. And 150 complete fairy bloodlines. The compassionate god had agreed. In addition, because of the sea demon that Yin Lin had proposed, which had awakened its origin water, Huiyao had taken out a true desolate grade desolate bloodline Fey. The Freedom Federation had also taken out a middle-rank devil. It was really difficult for a Class 5-star family in the Azure Federation to take out such a large amount of resources. Even if they took them out, they would definitely suffer. At present, Lan Xun took this huge amount of resources and walked in the direction of the 13 Highnesses of Huiyao. Finally, it was handed over to the old man. Lan Xun realized that during this process, Huiyao's other Highnesses did not have the slightest opinion. According to the contents of the bet, most of the resources would be given to the person who performed best in the battle. That was the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress did not compete to take the resources. From this, it could be seen how united Huiyao's Highnesses were. 7017K. Chapter 1780. Lan Xun could be sure that if the Freedom Federation won the competition, they would not be able to win. When he distributed the resources to Goddess Lian and Li Su, the two of them would definitely have a conflict over the distribution of resources. Li Su's face darkened completely. He might not be able to provide as many resources as the Pity Goddess, but Li Su was not a Class 5 creation master. In terms of resources, there was no way he could compare to Goddess Lien. Li Su stared fixedly at the Goddess of Pity. He noticed that there was no trace of anger on Goddess Lien's face. It was as if the one who suffered the most wasn't the pity goddess. Based on Li Su's understanding of Goddess Lien, she definitely did not have this kind of tolerance. Moreover, Lien Shen was never willing to admit defeat. Just as Li Su was looking at the Goddess of Lien, she spoke again. Xian Yu is my caretaker, as well as the Freedom Federation's third freedom envoy. When Xian Yu died, this empress did not act. This was for the sake of the Freedom Federation's reputation. Our Freedom Federation can afford to lose, but Luo used some tricks to recruit Na Na. Na Na acted and protected Luo, who should have died. Right now, there are two choices. First, let Luo die. Second, let Na Na break the rules and make simple compensation. Second, Na Na, you can protect Luo. However, this depends on whether the Radiance sect agrees or not. On the other hand, you have to come up with more resources. The Lien god's words were spoken with a strong sense of righteousness. Just like before, they were all standing on the side of the Freedom Federation. However, it was not normal for these words to come out of Goddess Lien's mouth. Li Su was very clear that Goddess Lien must have a motive. Otherwise, Lien Shen would not have reacted in such a manner. However, firstly, Li Su was not interested in the Goddess of Pity. Secondly, the Goddess of Pity was currently harming Na Na's interests, and it had nothing to do with him. Li Su did not make any statement. On the other hand, because of the words of the Pity Goddess, Na Na was stunned. Once again, he fell into a passive position. Na Na reached out her hand and rubbed Luo's soft silver short hair, which was dispelled from the greater devil's state. She was so angry that she let out a series of giggles. All of a sudden, an aura that was similar to Luo's just erupted, but it was on a completely different level. Na Na's hair, which was tied up in a high bun, suddenly fell down. In an instant, his hair turned purple. 4 horns protruded from the side of Na Na's forehead like a crown. Pale pink ghost tattoos appeared on both sides of Na Na's cheeks. From afar, these ghost patterns looked like insect marks. Na Na's voice suddenly became even more flirtatious. It was as if it could easily steal a person's soul. But at this moment, the coquettish voice was exceptionally cold. No matter what, I will protect Luo. She had learned from Luo that Luo's phaseless beast cub had been taken away by the youth behind the Moon Empress. Na Na had intended to think of a way to get that phaseless beast cub back. However, after the Goddess of Compassion's words, Na Na couldn't bring up the matter of the infant phaseless beast anymore. Lin Yuan had seen the emerald gem in Na Na's hand. The Mobius bracelet on his wrist suddenly became hot. Morbius' voice echoed in Lin Yuan's mind. Lin Yuan could sense Morbius' irrepressible joy from its tone. To be honest, this was the first time Lin Yuan had seen Morbius' emotions fluctuate so much. Buddy, do you remember when I told you that I'm not complete and that I need to find something to make myself whole? That emerald gem is exactly what I need. Upon hearing that, an uncontrollable joy immediately rose in Lin Yuan's heart. Morbius was Lin Yuan's life and death partner. Lin Yuan really hoped that Morbius could become complete. Secondly, with this emerald gem, as long as Morbius absorbed this emerald gem, it would not be able to escape. He then bound the emerald gem with one of his phase through Morbius' exclusive skill, Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. In that case, that spirit-locked Fey wouldn't just possess normal abilities and exclusive skills. It could also unlock other abilities and exclusive skills. Lin Yuan had been looking forward to this day ever since Morbius had mentioned it. Now, Lin Yuan's expectations could finally be realized. 7017K. Chapter 1781. When Lin Yuan had been communicating with Morbius, Morbius had given him some information. Lin Yuan guessed that if Morbius wanted to repair its body, it would explore the dimensional world. This was because Morbius' ability was mainly used on sacred source lifeforms. If Morbius could fuse two sacred source lifeforms, it meant that the dimensional world was definitely related to Morbius. Now, Na had taken out this emerald green crystal. This let Lin Yuan know that his initial guess was correct. There was more than one groove on the Morbius ring. Even if Lin Yuan obtained this emerald green dimensional gem, he would not be able to completely restore Morbius. Therefore, the exploration of dimensional worlds could be said to have become something that he had to do. No matter how much Lin Yuan wanted this emerald green dimensional gem, Lin Yuan knew that he should not ask for it at this time. This was because the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation were currently in a game of chess. Any choice would be related to the Federation's interests. Even if he could not obtain this emerald green gem, now that he knew the origin of the dimensional gem, he would always have a chance to obtain it again. The moment Na took out the emerald green gem, the pity god's expression suddenly turned ugly. The pity god really liked this dimensional gem. Otherwise, she would not have thought of exchanging it with Na. The pity god, who had fused with the mermaid bloodline, felt that this gem would not be simple. However, even if the pity god took out something that was far more valuable than this dimensional gem, Na also remained unmoved. This let the pity god know that she had her eyes on this dimensional gem, which made Na feel strange. She wanted to study this dimensional gem in private. Na had mentioned so many functions of this dimensional gem, so she must have come to this conclusion after exploring it. There was no reason for the pity god not to obtain something that she liked. If it had been in the past, Na would have taken out this dimensional gem as a bargaining chip to trade with the Radiance Federation. The pity god would have been extremely furious. The pity god might have been able to obtain something that was in Na's hands if she put in some effort. However, this dimensional gem was in the Radiance Federation's hands. The pity god did not think that she would have the chance to obtain it again. At this moment, the pity god had a trace of killing intent toward Na. Interesting. Since you're using something I like as a bargaining chip, then I'll make you take out something even more valuable. According to the rules of the Assembly of 10,000 Nations, everything of the loser will be given to the winner. Luo lost the match. You want to save Luo's life. I'm afraid that what he has to offer is not just this. When the great devil gluttony swallows its target, other than the part that can be quickly digested, the rest will be stored in the void stomach. Yanling, Kaihua and Yuchangjian were all devoured by Luo. Luo didn't give up on sacred source lifeforms either. Spit out the resources in Yanling, Kaihua, and Yuchangjian spatial sieves, as well as the remains of the 3 sacred source lifeforms. Luo's sacred source lifeform and the greater devil in her body are still alive. You took out these items to save Luo's life, but you're clearly trying to save several lives. The Freedom Federation's envoys came to Radiance to attend the ceremony. Fists and kicks have no eyes in a duel. I can accept the death of my beloved. That's why, Na, as the leader of the Freedom Federation, even if you successfully ascend to godhood, you cannot disgrace the Freedom Federation. I know you've already given your seed of Satan to Luo, but I remember that you should still have another seed of Satan. Why don't you just take out this Satan seed and settle this matter? Once again, the goddess of mercy spoke in an awe-inspiring and righteous manner. No matter how one looked at it, these words were all for the good of the Freedom Federation. It was as if Na had damaged the image of the Freedom Federation. It was as if the goddess of pity was trying her best to persuade Na. For some reason, Li Su felt a little better after hearing Lian Shen's words. Not only had they failed to achieve their goal of leading the team to the Radiant sect, but the plan had also failed. They had also lost a large amount of resources. But now, with Goddess Lian's words, Na would probably have to bleed together with him. The extra Satan seed in Na Na's hand was obtained when she was competing with Li Su. Even though Li Su could tell that Goddess Lian harbored ill intentions towards Na Na, Li Xian also chose not to participate. Instead, he watched coldly from the sidelines. In fact, when Goddess Lianshan said these words, the ones who were the most shocked are the 13 leaders of the Radiant sect. Even the Moon Empress looked at Goddess Lianshan with a complicated gaze. If Goddess Lianshan didn't come from the Freedom Federation and was one of the 16 leaders of the Freedom Federation, the Moon Empress would have thought that Goddess Lianshan was the Radiant sect's leader. Previously, Goddess Lianshan told Lin Yuan that she wanted to accept Lin Yuan as her beloved. This sentence angered the Moon Empress so much that she almost attacked Goddess Lianshan on the spot. Lin Yuan rejected Goddess Lianshan in public, which made the Moon Empress feel much better. After Goddess Lianshan publicly expressed that she wanted to accept Lin Yuan as her beloved, since Na Na appeared, Goddess Lianshan had spoken up for the Radiant sect for the third time. Although her words were to protect the Freedom Federation, her actions were indeed beneficial to the Radiant sect. When the Moon Empress found out about this, Goddess Lianshan would definitely look for her. After guessing for a long time, the Moon Empress couldn't guess Goddess Lianshan's motive. After guessing for a long time, she couldn't guess Goddess Lianshan's motive. Originally, the Moon Empress didn't intend to agree to Na Na's request. However, if Na Ken took out a Satan seed, Na Na could immediately take Lu O out of the Radiant sect. Back then, the Moon Empress was willing to take out so many resources to exchange for the Satan seed in Li Su's hands. This was enough to show the importance of the Satan seed. In fact, the Satan seed didn't have any effect on the Moon Empress. The Satan seed was only useful to creatures like demons. The Moon Empress wanted more of this Satan seed because of Lin Yuan. According to the bet, the Radiant sect had obtained a middle-rank demon and a great sea demon that had awakened its natal water. When the bet was made, it was agreed that the middle-rank demon and the great sea demon that had awakened its natal water would be given to the winner's side with the most outstanding performance. This person wasn't Ji Changding's disciple, Lu Yifan, but her disciple, Lin Yuan. In addition, the true Desolate-grade Desolate bloodline Fey that the Radiant sect had used for the bet was also Lin Yuan's. After a Spirit Chi professional formed a contract with a Desolate bloodline Fey, they could form a contract with both demons and demons at the same time. At present, the Moon Empress, who was blocking in front of Lin Yuan, was already thinking about how to pave the way for Lin Yuan. Na Na gritted her teeth, and the pinkish-purple ghost pattern on her face became more intense. It was as though it would explode at any moment. If this was raised by the Radiance Federation, he would be able to bargain. 7017K. Chapter 1782. However, these words came from the mouth of the Pity Goddess, who was on her side. In Na Na's opinion, ever since the Pity Goddess had fused with the mermaid bloodline, she had become more and more insane. Rumor had it that 10 years ago in the Freedom Ocean, the Pity Goddess, who had just become a god, actually fought with the Fool God and the Mirror God and was later suppressed by them. Na Na was afraid that the Pity Goddess would lose her mind and really do something harmful to her. Even if she had the confidence to leave the Radiance Federation, she would never be able to take Lu O with her. No matter how angry she was, Na Na had to try her best to suppress her temper. She must not let her aura completely burst out. This was because if she completely burst out her aura in front of other experts, it was an act of provocation in itself. It was very likely that the Radiance Federation's holiness would attack her. Thinking of this, Na Na said to Lu O, who was beside her, "Lil O, spit out everything that you put into the hollow stomach during the fight." Lu O was still thinking about the Calamity Phaseless Beast Cub. However, Lu O was not a person who did not understand the situation. Even if Na Na didn't remind him, Lu O understood what was going on in front of him. Lu O urged the spiritual power that he had just recovered, and a huge black and red stomach appeared out of nowhere in front of him. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yuchangjian were all digested by the stomach. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yuchangjian's phase were also digested, as well as parts of their sacred source lifeforms. These things were all spat out by Luo. Luo knew very well that he had no choice but to vomit. Since he was going to vomit, he had to vomit everything out. He could not hide anything. Luo felt very humiliated when he spat out the spoils of war from the black and red stomach. Luo's eyes were fixed on him. Luo knew very well that this young man must be the next Radiance envoy. 2 years later, he was destined to have another battle with this young man. He saw the way Luo was looking at him. In fact, after the battle with Luo, he no longer regarded Luo as his opponent. For Luo to be able to reach his current strength, he must have been working very hard to improve since he was young. Lin Yuan might be very powerful now, but he had only been in this world for a total of 10 months. In 10 months, he had gone from having nothing to catching up with the standards of the various top youths in the Federation. If Lin Yuan was given another 2 years to develop, he was not sure to what extent he could develop. Lin Yuan, whose mentality had changed, suddenly felt that Luo's expression was very ridiculous. Thus, Lin Yuan simply blinked twice at Luo. Given his relationship with Lu Jia and Zhong Zhe, this expression could be understood as a friendly interaction. However, Lin Yuan and Luo were enemies and not friends. In Luo's eyes, such an expression could be said to be an expression of extreme mockery. Luo almost couldn't hold it in and exploded. Fortunately, reason won over anger, so Luo did not do anything extreme. Otherwise, he would have to pay even more. Luo wasn't the only one who saw Lin Yuan's winking expression. Since the end of the battle, Lin Yuan had been the center of attention. Countless viewers were staring at Lin Yuan through Star Web. At this moment, Star Web was in a state of excitement. Hui Yao had emerged victorious in this battle against the Freedom Federation. Everyone was proud of it. During the battle, the atmosphere was tense. Even if they knew that Black and Lin Yuan were the same person, there was no intense discussion. Now that the team battle was over, it was the time for the Star Web viewers to vent their emotions. The bullet comments in the live streaming room kept rolling. Various Star Web reporters were reporting on Star Web. Many D-Masters began to post one post after another on the Star Web. Now, the Star Web viewers were passing through the veteran factions and top faction members, constantly spreading the news. They already vaguely knew that Lin Yuan was the Moon Empress disciple. Due to the special status of Lin Yuan, Zhong Zhe, Lu Yifan, Gao Feng, and Lu Jia, these creation masters no longer posted anything related to Lin Yuan and the others. They started to analyze Lin Yuan and the others' phase. Instead, they started to use their creation master knowledge to analyze the Freedom Federation's members' phase and sacred source lifeforms. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yuchangjian were already dead. The introduction of the trio's sacred source lifeforms still attracted a large number of Star Web viewers. Many of the younger generation were preparing to treasure the recording of this duel and use it as a goal to encourage themselves. After this duel, it could be said that Lin Yuan had used his strength to overshadow the Radiant's third Radiance envoy, Lu Yifan. He had become an existence even more dazzling than the eminences in the Radiant's Sacred Hall. Therefore, Lin Yuan's eye-catching performance against Luo had instantly exploded on Star Web. 1 Dao 3 lives, ah. Lord Black's blink is so cool. But this blink is for Luo. Why do I want to laugh so much? Star Phoenix Eye, haha. Look at how angry Lord Lin Yuan is. I dare to bet that Luo will never dare to come to the Radiant's Sacred Hall's territory again. That might be the case, I can't hold it in anymore. I still want to say that Lord Lin Yuan is awesome. Later, I will bring my family to have a feast to celebrate. Early autumn is like a dream. Luo will probably have a chance to face off against Lord Lin Yuan in the Myriad Nations Conference in 2 years. Do you still remember Luo's ability that killed Lord Lu Jie's insect-type carcinoma Fei? I feel like there's something wrong with that skill. Magical Jie Zai, Luo can't defeat Lord Lin Yuan now. Even if Luo improves, Lord Lin Yuan will not stagnate. I think it will be the same result in 2 years. The commotion on Star Web would probably last for a long time. During this process, Lin Yuan, who had just winked at Luo, realized that Luo's aura had disappeared. In the shrine deep within his soul, the growth of the power of faith seemed to have sped up. Lin Yuan blinked again, unsure if it was an illusion. Xia Qing and he had seen the 5-on-5 collision just now. Xia Qing didn't know Lin Yuan before. However, he now remembered Lin Yuan deeply in his heart. The silver-masked Lin Yuan had previously made Xia Qing feel cold and distant. But now that he had taken off his mask and blinked, Xia Qing looked over. However, there was a hint of naivety and adorableness to her. Xia Qing couldn't help but burst into laughter. When she looked at Lin Yuan, there was a hint of emotion that even Xia Qing herself didn't realize. Before the start of this duel, Xia Qing didn't think that anyone in the Radiance Sacred Hall's younger generation could be compared to her in strength. But now, Xia Qing found someone who was not weaker than her. 7017K. Chapter 1783. Xia Qing had always been abnormally proud. It could be said that Xia Qing had always played with Lu Yifan's batch of Radiance envoys. This was because Xia Qing's brother was the #1 Radiance envoy. Xia Qing had started much earlier than Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, and An He. Xia Qing had been born with a golden spoon in her mouth. Although her parents had sacrificed their lives for Hui Yao, Xia Qing had always been raised by her grandfather. She had been nurtured by Hui Yao since she was young. All along, Xia Qing had not really put Gu Lang, Zhong Zhe, An He, and the others in her eyes. Xia Qing did not look down on Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, An He, and the others. Xia Qing had always been abiding by an objective fact because strength was there for all to see. Previously, when facing Lu Jie, Xia Qing was willing to give up the Radiance 100 Sequences #1 throne. First, it was because Xia Qing admired Lu Jie, which had nothing to do with strength. What Xia Qing admired was Lu Jie, who was willing to sacrifice his life and his future to protect the safety of Cold Frost City. It was just like how Xia Qing admired her parents very much even though she had never met them. When Xia Qing's parents were on a mission, they had also encountered the opening of a Class 5-dimensional rift. During the active period, this Class 5-dimensional rift had appeared in the suburbs of Cloud Pool City without warning. Once this Class 5 underground dimensional rift spread, the ground would collapse. At least half of Cloud Pool City's area would experience an earth-shattering disaster. A large number of ordinary people would die. Due to the opening of the dimensional rift, space was blocked, and the phone could no longer be reached. They could only wait for someone to discover it. Only by leaving the range of the dimensional rift could they call for reinforcements. Xia Qing's parents were very strong, and they had been able to survive in this Class 5-dimensional rift for close to 6 hours. Their purpose in the Class 5 underground dimensional rift was not to survive. Instead, it was to prevent the underground lifeforms that surged out of the Class 5 underground dimensional rift from entering Cloud Pool City. By the time the Spirit Guards and Cloud Pool Guards arrived, Xia Qing's mother was already dead. Xia Qing's father had also sacrificed his vitality to use his body as a shield and died. It was precisely because Lu Jie and her parents had similar experiences that Xia Qing had given up her position. Otherwise, even if Lu Jie made it clear that he would not fight for the position of the Radiance Envoys, the Radiance Envoys would not dare to do so. Even if Xia Qing didn't want to expose her strength, she would still fight Lu Jie. Even if Xia Qing admired Lu Jie, it did not mean that Xia Qing recognized Lu Jie's strength. Even though Lu Jie had used the insect-type carcinoma Fei during his fight with Long Tao, Xia Qing was both surprised and curious. However, Xia Qing still had a way to restrain these insect-type carcinoma Feis. Speaking of the desolate bloodline Fei, Xia Qing's desolate bloodline Fei had already reached the Great Desolate Realm last year. If it were not for the fact that Xia Qing was not a Radiance envoy, she would not have been able to enter the desolate secret realm. Xia Qing's desolate bloodline Fei could be even stronger. At the beginning of the battle, Xia Qing was very nervous. Although Xia Qing had no personal relationship with Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, Black, and the others. However, Xia Qing was still afraid that these Radiant sect elites of the same generation as her would be injured. He was also afraid that Hui Yao's dignity would be damaged. If not for the rules, the Freedom Federation wouldn't have picked him. Xia Qing wanted to jump into the battle. However, when Lin Yuan had summoned Chaimi during the battle with Han Qi, Chaimi's aura had disappeared. It had already let Xia Qing know that Lin Yuan was extraordinary. However, Xia Qing still didn't take Lin Yuan seriously. After all, Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, and the others could also use Diamond X/Fantasy V phase as B-rank Spirit Chi professionals. It was an attack that only a myth breed Fei could produce. It was a common thing for geniuses to fight above their level. It was Lin Yuan's sword skill, Silver Turtle Mirror Strike, which reflected the creation breed phase attack. Only then did Xia Qing take Lin Yuan's strength seriously. With the strength of a B-rank Spirit Chi professional, the attack was an entire grade higher. Only such strength could be compared with Xia Qing's strength. It could be said that among her peers, Xia Qing found someone she could communicate with for the first time. Due to the acknowledgement, Xia Qing felt increasingly close to Lin Yuan. Nana saw Luo's angry expression because of Lin Yuan's wink. He said, "Lil, oh, you still have a long way to go. Remember this day. You still have 2 years to wash away today's humiliation." Nana's words caused the Moon Empress to look at Nana differently. For Nana to say such words at such a time. It was enough to see Nana's style as an expert. Just as Luo heard Nana's words and nodded. The Goddess of Mercy continued to speak. "I still have other things to do. I'm going to leave first." The Goddess of Mercy's words caused Li Su and Nana's expressions to change again. This was the Radiance's territory, and the three of them belonged to the same entity. They belonged to the same interest group. The Goddess of Mercy was the strongest among the three. Once the Goddess of Mercy left, the Radiance's deterrence would be greatly reduced. Therefore, no matter what, the two of them had to leave with the Goddess of Mercy. Nana took out a Satan seed and handed it to the Moon Empress along with the 3 uncontracted sacred source lifeforms and the emerald green dimensional gem. At that moment, the mountain river set bells, which were ranked 4th in the Radiant Stabilization Nation, immediately disappeared with the shield in the air. The Goddess of Mercy, Nana, and Li Su left the Radiance with the independent 100 sequence members who did not participate in the battle and Luo, who had luckily escaped. The Radiance 100 sequence test had finally come to an end. The Moon Empress turned around and handed the resources that she had obtained from Nana to Lin Yuan. "Nana saved Luo from your hands, so these resources that are used to redeem Luo's life should be given to you. As for the rest of the resources used for the bet, I will send them to you in 1 day." This was the first time the Moon Empress referred to herself as Lin Yuan's master in public. It could be said that the Moon Empress' words were equivalent to announcing Lin Yuan's identity to the world. The live broadcast on Star Web did not end, and the Star Web audience could hear what the Moon Empress had said to Lin Yuan. From the moment Black's mask fell off, there were rumors on Star Web that Black was the Moon Empress disciple. However, rumors were ultimately just rumors and could not be considered accurate news. After all, the Moon Empress had never publicly announced that Lin Yuan was her disciple. Lin Yuan had also never publicly announced that the Moon Empress was his master. Many people even thought that the person who spread this kind of news was crazy. If he was not crazy, how would he dare to spread rumors about the Moon Empress? Who would have thought that the rumor was actually true? The Moon Empress had personally revealed her relationship with Lin Yuan. This immediately caused an uproar on Star Web. 7017K. Chapter 1784. However, being surprised was just being surprised. Only the explanation of Lin Yuan being the Moon Empress disciple could explain why Lin Yuan was so powerful at such a young age. Ever since Black and Lin Yuan gained popularity on Star Web, the Star Web netizens had been guessing Black and Lin Yuan's origins. Although he had proven that Black and Lin Yuan were the same person, he had never revealed his background. The truth about Lin Yuan's background was also revealed. There were plenty of creation masters that were analyzing Lin Yuan's phase for the sake of popularity. Now that they knew Lin Yuan's identity, these related posts were immediately deleted by those creation masters. Lin Yuan lifted his eyes to look at the Moon Empress. When he heard what the Moon Empress had just said and the gentle smile on her face, he felt proud. Lin Yuan hurriedly replied, "Master, I'll go to your place tomorrow. It just so happens that after the 100-sequence assessment, I want to go out and train for a period of time." The Moon Empress was slightly startled. Then, his smile became even gentler. He reached out to tidy up Lin Yuan's collar, which had become messy because of the fight just now. "Little Yuan, I've brought you the Moonlight Royal Robe. Go and change into it. The uninvited guest has left. The 100-sequence ceremony will continue in a while." While the Moon Empress was speaking, Mystic Moon had already taken the gift box containing the full set of moonlight gowns and came to Lin Yuan's side. "Your Highness, follow me to the Radiant Sacred Hall to change your clothes." When Lin Yuan heard Mystic Moon's words, he wanted to refuse and say that he could do it himself. However, when he thought about how complicated and difficult it was to wear the Moonlight Crown robe, he did not reject Xianyu. If there was no Mystic Moon, Lin Yuan would have to wear this Moonlight Crown robe. It would take at least an hour and a half to fully equip it. Furthermore, it was very likely that he would not be able to finish wearing it in an hour and a half. After all, there were more than 100 accessories for the Moonlight Royal Robe. It had been too long since the last time he wore the Moonlight Royal Robe. Furthermore, he had only worn the Moonlight Crown robe once. Thus, he could no longer remember where to put the accessories for the Lunar Regalia robe. Lin Yuan followed Mystic Moon into the interior of the Radiant Sacred Hall. Lu Jie, Zhong Zhe, Gao Feng, Xia Qing, Gu Lang, and he and the others. They all heard Lin Yuan's words. When Xia Qing saw Lin Yuan's strength, she felt as though she had finally discovered a young person as powerful as her. However, through the strength that Lin Yuan had displayed, the others saw the gap between them and Lin Yuan. This gap could be said to be unimaginably big. Gu Lang and he, who were standing in the stands, were very clear. If Lin Yuan had not been present, he would not have been able to win this duel. Lin Yuan was already so strong, but he was preparing to set off to train. Lin Yuan was so diligent that he felt a little ashamed. At this moment, he understood that apart from talent, there were other objective factors in the strength gap between him and Lin Yuan. The Radiant's 100-sequence members no longer dared to target Lin Yuan. This was because the gap between him and the other Radiant's 100-sequence members was simply too huge. However, it did not hinder Lin Yuan's diligent spirit, which encouraged the other Radiant's 100-sequence members. The other 12 Radiant's Abyssals looked at the Moon Empress. They knew very well that the Moon Empress wanted Lin Yuan to wear the Moon Regalia. This was to officially announce Lin Yuan's identity to the world. The entire origin world was in turmoil. This turmoil was not only because of the confrontation between the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation. No matter how strong the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation were, the matters of the two federations could not affect the entire origin world. Except for the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation. None of the federations with Class 5 Creation Masters would be quiet. The Mother Goddess Federation and the Sand State Federation had already started to collide and engage in close combat. It was unknown what the Pagoda Cannon's purpose was, but it had been accumulating power in the dark. Those federations without Class 5 Creation Masters, as long as they were in the same continent, they had never truly stopped. At such a time, a batch of the younger generation would stand up. It had a completely different meaning compared to the previous batch of the younger generation. In this chaotic world, the younger generation would bear a much heavier responsibility. At the thought of this, the Abyssals with disciples waved to their disciples. His Holiness called An He, Chef Supreme called Zhong Zhe, Bamboo Monarch called Gu Lang, Night Leaning Moon called Lu Jia, and His Holiness Cicada Cry called Gao Feng. Even the old man called Xia Qing to his side. He handed over the royal robe in his hand that was waiting to be replicated. Since the Moon Empress had already taken action, they naturally had no reason not to follow. He could make use of this opportunity to give these little fellows a little more responsibility. The battlefield in 2 years' time would be much bloodier than today's. It was also more formal. While Lin Yuan was wearing Dai Yuehua's regal robe, Mystic Moon said, "That's right. Your Highness, if Shueshua hadn't hidden in your hair, the Moon Empress would have interfered countless times." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan's heart stirred. But to be honest, even if Shueshua didn't lie in his hair, if he wasn't a match for Luo, he didn't wish for the Moon Empress to make a move. Luo's master, Na, acted to protect Luo. This matter would definitely spread out. The reputation of the Freedom Federation was bound to suffer because of this. Lin Yuan did not want the Radiance's glory to be covered in a layer of dust because of him. Lin Yuan might have lived an extra lifetime in his previous life. However, in this life, he had been born from his mother's womb. All the fetters were with Hui Yao. Lin Yuan was a true radiant citizen. In fact, Lin Yuan had his own plans. After the Radiance 100 sequence ended, Lin Yuan planned to head to the Divine Wood Federation as soon as possible. On one hand, the Holy Wood Mystic Realm was about to start. On the other hand, Di Wanmi had been sent to the Divine Wood Federation by Lin Yuan. Di Wanmi might just be a puppet of Red Thorn, but he was still a genuine Class 5 Creation Master. This clash with the Freedom Federation made Lin Yuan know that he didn't have much time left. He had to take down the Agro-Pattern continent in a very short time. In addition, he couldn't relax in the exploration of the swamp world. Now that he had confirmed that the thing that could make Morbius complete came from a dimensional world, Li Su planned to take a look at the Swamp East Palace in the Swamp East Circle. Previously, Lin Yuan didn't rashly step into the Swamp East Circle because he didn't think he had the strength to do so. After all, the Swamp East Circle gathered all the powerful apostles in the entire Swamp East area. It was a city established by the apostles. It was rumored that there were rulers in the Swamp East Circle. Lin Yuan, who was a fake ruler, didn't dare to rashly go against those real rulers. But now, the power of faith in Lin Yuan's shrine was dozens of times more than before the start of the Radiance 100 sequence. Such a huge amount of power of faith was used to enhance Bai Yan. Bai Yan's strength should be able to surpass the limits of an apostle. Chapter 1785. Lin Yuan had never had the chance to test it out. However, considering the strength of his power of faith, Lin Yuan decided to wait until he went to the swamp world to test it out with Bai Yan. When Lin Yuan had used the power of faith on the Void Shadow Fiend, He knew that the power of faith had a requirement for the dimensional lifeform strength. The Void Shadow Fiend strength had been at the creation breed level. Through the power of faith, Lin Yuan could at most raise the Void Shadow Fiend strength to the mid-stage immortal level. Later, when the Void Shadow Fiend reached the immortal level, Lin Yuan had used the power of faith to increase its strength to the peak of immortal level. Lin Yuan had used the power of faith in his shrine to increase Bai Yan's strength, which had already reached the high-stage immortal level. It was certain that Bai Yan would break through the immortal level and reach the eternal level. However, if he increased it further, the range of increase would not be too large. Therefore, Lin Yuan felt that he should use his status as a ruler in the swamp world to accept an apostle stronger than Bai Yan. It would be best if the apostle's strength could reach the eternal level. That was the so-called level of a class 13-dimensional life form. Lin Yuan had heard Bai Yan mention that an apostle's strength could reach the eternal level after reaching class 13. It was not certain that they could become a ruler. It could even be said that among 100 class 13-dimensional life form apostles, only one could evolve into a ruler. Moreover, the power of faith had reached an extremely high level, and the apostle had reached class 13. When attempting to break through to the ruler level, they would face great danger, and it was very easy for them to die. Lin Yuan had speculated at the sacred source lifeforms obtained from class 5-dimensional rifts that suddenly opened in a spatial stable region when the dimensional rifts were not active. They were usually more colorful than the sacred source lifeforms obtained from other dimensional rifts. Lin Yuan thought to himself after understanding the mystery of the sacred source lifeforms. Those class 5-dimensional rifts that suddenly opened must have something to do with the class 13 apostles who had failed to break through to the ruler level. Since it was very difficult to evolve to the ruler level, it was very difficult. 9 out of 10 chances of survival. If Lin Yuan could help these apostles break through and give them a chance to break through to the next level, these apostles would have no reason to reject him. No matter what, it was still the same. It was just like how Fays needed pure spirit chi to increase their strength. No matter what stage dimensional creatures reached, they needed source-type powers. He had accumulated quite a lot of source-type power. Moreover, Lin Yuan was able to deceive Bai Yan by fusing with Bai Lan when there was not much faith power left in the shrine. Now that the power of faith had multiplied, he felt that it was not impossible for him to deceive the ruler of the swamp world. Lin Yuan had never been willing to rely on his master, the Moon Empress. However, the divine weeping moon beast, whose strength had already broken through to the eternal realm, had always been in the swamp world. It turned into a green moon above his head. If Lin Yuan really encountered something that was difficult for him to solve, he would not be able to do so. He could ask the weeping divine moon beast for help. After going to the East Marsh Palace, he had to make a trip to the Myriad Ruler's Myriad Palace. Lin Yuan's goal in going to the Myriad Palace was simple. It was to exchange for a batch of resources. If a sacred source lifeform was obtained through a class 5-dimensional rift, it was indeed extremely secretive. There was no way to know what was inside the rainbow light. However, if it was obtained by killing an apostle, based on the abilities of the apostle's totem when it was alive, it would be impossible to obtain it. He could basically determine the scope of the sacred source lifeform's abilities. Even if he could not estimate it very accurately, he could determine if it was suitable for a certain spirit chi professional. The Myriad Palace was used to exchange source-type items and sacred source lifeforms. According to Bai Yan, they would all indicate their origins. In this chaotic world, Lin Yuan had to quickly strengthen Sky City. In order to strengthen Sky City, the first thing he had to do was to increase the strength of Sky City's internal members. There were already quite a number of core members in Sky City. Apart from the original core members like Lu Jia, Wen Yu, the Mother of Bloodbath, and Endless Summer. They had also recruited Duan He, Ji Feng, Listen, and the others. After that, Qin Luan, Qin Shua, and Xiao Hua and Xiao Chao, who possessed the extreme night jade Sky Scorpion, had also become the backbone of Sky City. The Celestial Council for Sacred Source Lifeforms was based on Sky City's organization. The Celestial Council now had several members. Apart from people like Yin Lin, who were not simple in the Celestial Council. If the others wanted to grow, each of them was a resource black hole. They needed Lin Yuan to earn money to support their families. As Morbius grade increased, the Spirit Lock spatial zone continued to expand, and new facilities appeared inside. Apart from being able to obtain pure spirit chi, Lin Yuan could also use the elemental well water to concoct the purest elemental energy in the world. Any spirit chi professional would definitely need these things. Hui Yao was a whole. Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, and he, and the others were all considered Lin Yuan's friends. In the next 2 years, Lin Yuan would naturally not be stingy with his friends. The consumption of all kinds of resources gave Lin Yuan pressure and motivation. When Mystic Moon helped Lin Yuan put on the Moonlight Crown robe, Lin Yuan was very cooperative. However, Mystic Moon could tell from Lin Yuan's eyes that he was thinking about something. Mystic Moon quickly quietened down, thinking that Lin Yuan had gained something from the battle just now. The Mystic Moon was a dragon species Fae, and it was a Fae of the dragon species. She had an extraordinary pickiness toward beauty. The Moon Empress and Cold Moon were the clearest about this. If 3 kinds of fruits were placed in front of Mystic Moon, she would definitely choose the prettiest one to eat. Even if that fruit tasted the worst among the 3. Even if Mystic Moon was extremely picky about beauty, when Lin Yuan suddenly turned into a mermaid, she was still stunned. It gave Mystic Moon a new understanding of beauty. Now that Lin Yuan had removed his mermaid state, Mystic Moon took a closer look at Lin Yuan. She found that Lin Yuan's facial features were almost the same as when he had just turned into a mermaid. However, Lin Yuan's bone structure and facial features were softer in his merfolk transformation. Lin Yuan's human form lacked the androgynous beauty of his mermaid form. Instead, he had the vitality and sunshine that belonged to a youth. Under this youth's vitality and sunshine, there was an indescribable forbearance and profundity. This forbearance and profundity made Lin Yuan not look like a youth of 18 or 19 years old. However, Mystic Moon could understand. Through the information, Mystic Moon clearly knew what kind of life Lin Yuan and Chu Xi had led in the past. Soon, with Mystic Moon's help, Lin Yuan had put on the Moonlight Crown robe. As Morbius grade increased, True Data's detection range became wider and wider. 7017K. Chapter 1786. When he had worn the Moonlight Crown robe last time, Lin Yuan had curiously used Morbius True Data to investigate the materials used in the Moonlight Crown robe. At that time, Lin Yuan had discovered that almost half of the materials couldn't be detected by him. This time, Lin Yuan had detected most of the materials. However, there were still some materials that Morbius couldn't detect at its current level. This startled Lin Yuan. One had to know that the current Morbius could even examine undying beings. However, he couldn't detect it now, which meant that this robe contained materials produced from an eternal species Fae. Even Lin Yuan, who had seen a lot of things, at this moment. He also truly understood how luxurious this set of Moonlight Royal robe was. Wearing the Moonlight Crown robe, Lin Yuan's body immediately gave off a bit of nobility. This nobility blended with Lin Yuan's sunny temperament, making Lin Yuan look not difficult to approach at all. Mystic Moon reached out to help Lin Yuan tidy up the collar on his neck and said, "The Moon Empress is really far-sighted. The Moon Empress truly has the foresight to know that His Young Highness is still growing." She deliberately added a layer of silver muslin pearl fish skin inside the Moonlight Crown robe. Otherwise, when His Young Highness wore it, this Moonlight Crown robe would appear to be a little small. Through Mystic Moon's words, Lin Yuan knew how much effort his master, the Moon Empress, had put into creating this moonlight crown robe. Under normal circumstances, Her Majesties would wear the robe. However, there was no silver muslin pearl fish skin. Lin Yuan had heard of the silver muslin pearl fish, which was a type of fish carcinoma fey. Once the silver muslin pearl fish appeared, it would quickly absorb the surrounding spatial energy. It would digest the absorbed spatial energy and enhance itself. This would cause a spatial shuttle, causing a large area of spatial instability. It was very likely to cause several dimensional rifts to open in a small area. It was the same level of harm as the Yin-Yang Chaos Butterfly that Lin Yuan had encountered in the Divine Wood Federation. In order to raise the silver muslin pearl fish, the space needed to be reinforced first. Then, a large amount of spatial spiritual materials would be consumed to feed the silver muslin pearl fish for them to absorb. The silver muslin pearl fish's normal color was bluish-gray, and it was extremely good at hiding in the sea. When the silver muslin pearl fish's fish skin became silver, and the layers of the fish skin came off, the skin of the silver muslin pearl fish could be carefully peeled off. This wouldn't cause any harm to the silver muslin pearl fish. However, the silver muslin pearl fish couldn't be upgraded. Next, the silver muslin pearl fish would absorb spatial energy again and change the state of the fish skin. The skin of the silver yarn pearl fish could be said that each layer of yarn was a layered space. Apart from the toughness of the silver muslin pearl fish skin, which allowed him to wear the moonlight royal robe forever. When it was attacked, the attack hit the moonlight royal robe. Apart from the defensive power of the spiritual material itself, the skin of the silver veil pearl fish was like a thin spatial structure. Only by piercing through these spatial structures could Lin Yuan's safety be threatened. A silver muslin pearl fish would take half a year to peel off a layer of fish skin when there were enough spatial spirit materials. His moonlight royal robe was made of at least 30 pieces of silver yarn pearl fish skin. He reckoned that even if his master, the Moon Empress, had accumulated the skin of the silver muslin pearl fish, she would not be able to survive. They were all used to make this moonlight crown robe. Mystic Moon looked at the time and said to Lin Yuan, "Young lord, it's almost time. Let's go out." Lin Yuan followed Mystic Moon out of the lounge on the third floor of the Radiant Sacred Hall. At the entrance of the Radiant Sacred Hall, Lu Jia, Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, Gao Feng, and he, and the others were all waiting here. Everyone was wearing a replica of the royal robe. The only one Lin Yuan didn't know was a young girl with waist-length hair. This young girl looked obviously 1 or 2 years younger than Zhong Zhe, Lu Jia, and the others. Just as Lin Yuan was about to greet everyone, this young girl, who was wearing a light golden royal robe embroidered with an ancient golden tree, walked toward Lin Yuan. The moment he saw this ancient golden tree, Lin Yuan immediately knew this young girl's identity. Lin Yuan had heard his master, the Moon Empress, mention it. Among the younger generation of the Radiant Sacred Hall, the strongest person who was qualified to compete for the Radiance Envoy position was the granddaughter of that old man, named Xiaofan. The ancient golden tree that had grown out of the imperial court had covered most of the Radiance Sacred Hall. It had forcibly lifted up the thousands of volcanoes that had erupted from the blooming platycodon in the sky. The ancient golden tree embroidered on the young girl's body indicated the young girl's identity. This young girl should be that old man's granddaughter, Xiaofan. Xiaofan came to Lin Yuan's side, smiled, and said very warmly, "It's our first time meeting." "Hello, Lin Yuan, my name is Xiaofan." The others also noticed Lin Yuan at this time and hurried to greet him. Zhong Zhe, Lu Jia, Gao Feng, and the others didn't know Xiaofan. However, the way he looked at Xiaofan was a little strange. And he remembered that his senior brother had said that Xiaofan was cold and had never been that kind of enthusiastic. When Xiaofan met them just now, she just nodded. But now, when facing Lin Yuan, why did Xiaqing suddenly change? In fact, the most surprised people present were Xian Yu and the man in golden half-body armor behind Xiaqing. Xian Yu and the man in golden half-body armor were undoubtedly much more familiar with Xiaqing. They understood the pride in Xiaqing's heart very well. Xiaqing's current attitude toward Lin Yuan was obviously much more intimate than her attitude toward the other younger generation. Xian Yu thought in her heart, Lin Yuan is worthy of being our Radiant Moon Palace's young lord. He is so likable wherever he goes. However, the man in golden half-body armor obviously didn't think so. The man in golden half-body armor looked at Lin Yuan defensively and then looked at Xiaqing. He thought in his heart, the Moon Empress disciple is really beautiful. It was rumored that the leader of the Azure Federation's envoy, Azure Envoy Yin Lin, had a special relationship with Lin Yuan. The two of them even rode in the same Fey carriage intimately. When the Freedom Federation proposed to have an exhibition match with the Radiance Federation, Yin Lin suddenly spoke and decisively stood on the Radiance Federation's side. The man in golden armor keenly noticed that before Yin Lin spoke, her eyes deliberately looked around the Radiance Federation's younger generation square formation. Finally, her eyes fell on the Moon Empress. At that time, the man in golden armor didn't understand what was going on. Now that he thought about it, Yin Lin was searching for the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan, in the crowd. This meant that Yin Lin already knew Lin Yuan was the Moon Empress disciple. However, she didn't know Lin Yuan's identity as black. Therefore, she couldn't find him. Xiaqing was now 19 years old, and she was 3 months away from her 20th birthday. This young lady was at the age where she first awakened to love. 17K. Chapter 1787. At this age, if one were to have any thoughts, it would very likely cause one's entire life to be ruined. Back then, the Moon Empress was in her early 20s and was radiant with youth. At that time, the Moon Empress was simply too dazzling. The younger generation had competitors, but no one was a match for the Moon Empress. Even if the Moon Empress had a cold temperament, she had captured the hearts of countless people back then. His Holiness the Solitary Lamp was one of them. On the Azure Federation side, there was even a Class 5 family head who had also appeared as a spectator during the Radiance 100 sequence test. As a result, this 5-star Azure aristocratic family's family head immediately took a fancy to the Moon Empress. Until now, he still hasn't taken a wife. Because he was unable to continue the bloodline, the former 5-star Azure family patriarch gave up the position of patriarch. He gave it to his younger brother. He became the guardian of his family. The Azure Daylight Tiger family had always been rather critical of the Moon Empress. However, all of this had nothing to do with the Moon Empress. However, back then, the Azure Daylight Tiger family's former family head had tried to woo the Moon Empress. He had done many shameful things. He was even beaten up twice by Night Leaning Moon and Solitary Eternal Lamp. When he thought of Night Leaning Moon, the golden armored man couldn't help but bite his lips. For a moment, the golden armored man couldn't figure out the relationship between Night Leaning Moon and the Moon Empress. Of course, the golden armored man could only casually think about these things in his heart. The golden armored man didn't have the guts to say such a thing. At that moment, the golden armored man saw Lin Yuan reaching out and holding Xiaqing's hand. Then, he smiled brightly and said, "Nice to meet you, Xiaqing. I'm Lin Yuan." When he smiled, his lips curled up slightly, and 2 dimples appeared on the corners of his mouth. Her lips were red and her teeth were pearly white. Her smile was as bright as the sun, and she was in high spirits. Lin Yuan's smile caused the golden armored man's heart to tremble. Oh my God! The Moon Empress disciple really knows how to laugh. Which young lady could withstand such a smile? Xiaoqing was slightly startled when she saw Lin Yuan's smile. Before Xiaoqing could speak, Gao Feng took the lead and patted Lin Yuan's shoulder. "Brother Lin. You're simply too strong. If it weren't for you in this battle, we would have all been defeated." Gao Feng was straightforward with his words. Plus, he had just fought a hardy battle and won. Gao Feng was excited. Therefore, when he spoke, he did not pay much attention to Lu Yifan. It seemed as though Lu Yifan, the third-ranked Radiance envoy, was useless. In fact, although Lu Yifan was not in the limelight in this battle, if Lu Yifan had not used the heavenly peach bird, the yin-yang twin ox, and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams goat, he would not have been able to defeat Lu Yifan. He also had the support of the gem witch, a sacred source life form. Even if Lu Jia allowed the insect queen to fuse with the sacred source life form, the 1000 insect queen core, to enter the ultimate weapon form and even the insect queen awakening form, the insect queen would not be able to recover. The team had long since been defeated by the enemy. It would not wait for Lin Yuan to recover from the stalemate with the phaseless beast. As a defense-type spirit chi professional, it was hard for him to be outstanding if he wasn't an attacker. In a team, a pure defense-type spirit chi professional's presence was even lower than a pure support-type spirit chi professional's. If it were in the past, and he, who had always been very protective of his senior brother, would definitely be unhappy. But now, and he did not have such a feeling. That was because he had watched this battle from start to finish. Gao Feng had spoken an objective fact and did not mean to belittle anyone. Previously, he, Lu Jia, Gao Feng, Gu Lang, Zhong Zhe, and he had held a meeting. They basically told each other the functions of their phase and sacred source lifeforms. Lin Yuan did not hide anything either. However, due to the urgency of time, no one summoned their phase to display their abilities and exclusive skills. As a result, Lin Yuan's phase gave everyone a pleasant surprise. Previously, he had always thought that there was no such thing as an all-round spirit chi professional in this world. Spirit chi professionals were divided into 4 major categories: power offense, defense, healing, and support. Ordinary spirit chi professionals would only choose to specialize in one of these 4 major categories. This way, it would be easier for them to play a role in the team. Spirit chi professionals who specialized in 2 categories were destined to not be as strong as those who specialized in only one. After all, spiritual energy was limited, and so was the number of contracted phase. However, Lin Yuan had subverted his understanding. Based on his previous understanding of Lin Yuan had only shown his side as a power offense-type spirit chi professional. Upon knowing that Lin Yuan was black, his subconscious reaction was that it was absurd. This was because Black's position was a healing-type spirit chi professional. But in this battle, Black helped the team recover their spiritual power, and Source Sand helped the team block attacks and cover the swarm. That strange-looking healing-type Fei had taken Lu Jia's life. He also healed Gao Feng's Yellow Spring Lily. In terms of attack, other than Zhong Zhe's attack that broke the link between the 3 of them, the other 2 were the strongest. Lu Jia's Insect Queen mainly served as a distraction. It didn't have any practical effect. Therefore, the few attacks that could affect the outcome were all made by Lin Yuan without exception. And he had always had a sense of pride in his heart. It was hard to truly admire someone. Even if Lin Yuan had given him a large number of Creation Master resources to transform his awakening hibernation Earth Dragon bloodline, he would not be able to do so. And his feelings for Lin Yuan were just friendship, but also a little gratitude. But now, Lin Yuan had won this battle. And he was completely convinced by Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's words, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "It's everyone's credit that we can win this duel. If you hadn't protected me in the early stages, I would have been killed by the other party." Lin Yuan's words were by no means modest. It was the truth. In this duel, everyone did their best to make the most of their contribution. Until now, Lin Yuan felt that the world calamity beast was very special and powerful. Lin Yuan felt that his soul power, spiritual power, and wisdom were far superior to his peers. However, under the attack of the world calamity beast, Morbius had to continuously release calm mind in order to protect his mind. During this period of time, if Yan Ling, Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, or Qian Yu were able to get close to him, they would be able to kill him. Of course, through this battle, Lin Yuan had a very deep understanding of his strength. Qian Yu died, and Luo was forced to summon Na. This meant that Qian Yu and Luo had used up their trump cards. But Lin Yuan didn't. In addition to those trump cards that couldn't be used, Lin Yuan still had 2 sword skills that he could use. The second function of the Holy Sword mode, which had a higher price, was not used. The second function of the Holy Sword mode was the strongest trump card that Lin Yuan could release in the current battle. Chapter 1788. Xian Yu had always known what kind of person Lin Yuan was. Xian Yu did not find it strange that Lin Yuan could say such a thing. However, the golden armored man looked at Lin Yuan in surprise. It was fine if such a young person did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. But he was so thoughtful in handling matters. In terms of strength, Xia Qing had never competed with Lin Yuan. Before they fought, it was hard to say who would win. Qian Yu's strength was definitely stronger than Lin Yuan's. However, in the battle, Qian Yu was restrained by Lin Yuan in almost every kind of means. Xia Qing's sacred source life form seemed to be able to restrict Lin Yuan to a certain extent. Regardless of strength, Xia Qing's personality was far inferior to Lin Yuan's. Xia Qing's pride would create a barrier between her and others. Therefore, Xia Qing was not suitable to be a leader. This was also why the old man did not want Xia Qing to compete for the first Radiance envoy position. He watched as Lu Jie, Zhongzhe, Gu Lang, Gao Feng, and the others spoke one after another, all of them talking with Lin Yuan as the center. The golden armored man looked at Lin Yuan deeply. At the same time, a sense of anticipation for the future arose in his heart. Compared to the Freedom Federation, unity would always be the Radiance Federation's strongest strength. The moment Lin Yuan and the others walked out of the Radiance Sacred Hall in their royal robes, the entire Star Web audience cheered again. The cheers on Star Web were incompatible with the solemn music in the Radiance Sacred Hall. However, if Lin Yuan had already controlled the phaseless beast, he would have noticed it. The Radiance Federation's luck was currently rising rapidly. The Moon Empress stood on the golden stone pillar and looked proudly at Lin Yuan, who was walking toward her step by step. Lin Yuan's path was destined to be very difficult. Otherwise, he would not have been so powerful. It was just like how the Moon Empress did not stand out in front of others, but only she knew how hard she had worked behind the scenes. There was no luck in one's strength. One had to climb up step by step. Only then could one become stronger. As Lin Yuan's master, the Moon Empress had never had the chance to participate in his hardships. On the contrary, Lin Yuan had helped her much more than she had helped Lin Yuan. Apart from the pure spirit qi, a lifespan rat had even saved his life. Seeing that Lin Yuan had walked to her side, the Moon Empress reached out and pulled him. He said to Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, this world is yours from now on. Fly as you wish." Lin Yuan was slightly startled when he heard that. Then, he suddenly recalled that his master, the Moon Empress, had said something similar when he was building the Sky Castle. However, back then, his master, the Moon Empress, had told him not to be afraid. He told himself that there would always be a solid shield behind him and that he could fly freely. Right now, the Moon Empress' words were filled with affirmation and expectations for him. Lin Yuan gently held onto the Moon Empress' hand and said, "That's right. Master, I will fly higher into the sky and gather more moons for you." If Lin Yuan had said something like this when he had just accepted him as a disciple, he would have been shocked. Although the Moon Empress would be very touched, she would not take it seriously. However, Lin Yuan had already given him a cyan moon. At that moment, when the Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan again, she realized something. In fact, unknowingly, Lin Yuan had already grown from a youth into a real man. However, the Moon Empress didn't know what she was feeling. There was joy, pride, and bitterness. In short, this feeling was very similar to when Lin Yuan had found out that Chu Xi had grown up. "Little Yuan, Master still has the same words. No matter how high you fly, Master will always protect you. As long as Master doesn't die, no one can bully you." In fact, when Lin Yuan and the others were in the team battle with the Freedom Federation's envoys, the Moon Empress and the Radiance Federation's other eminences were on guard. After all, the Heaven-Blessed Dojo had sent news that 2 members of the FATA's 8 pages would be visiting the Radiance Federation. However, the Radiance 100 sequence test had completely ended, and those 2 members of the 8 pages had not appeared. Even on the side of the Freedom Federation, there weren't any problems. This made the Moon Empress feel very strange. The strangest thing was the change in Goddess Lian's attitude toward the Radiance Federation. On the Radiance Federation's land, it was better to have less trouble. It was naturally the best if there could be no conflict. Otherwise, if there was a conflict, the ones who would suffer the most would be the ordinary people. Shueshua had been lying in Lin Yuan's hair. Beside Blue Lotus and White Phoenix in the Return from Faraway Manor, a beautiful woman wearing a light purple fur coat had appeared. This woman's eyes landed on the Mother of Bloodbath without blinking. Tears were swirling in the beautiful woman's eyes. Her eyes were filled with tears, and from time to time, a teardrop would slide down the beautiful woman's cheek. It immediately set off a ripple in the air. It caused the stable space to bloom with bewitching foxtail flowers. The Mother of Bloodbath had heard from Shueshua that the beautiful woman in front of her, who was the Heaven-Blessed Dojo's Grand Hall Master Ziqing, would come over to deliver her mother's remnant soul. During the long night conversation between the Mother of Bloodbath and Shueshua, Shueshua had mentioned the relationship between Ziqing and her mother. Back then, after her mother had died because of the 5 pages of truth, Ziqing had been able to kill her way into the enemy's headquarters alone and kill the Pagoda Cannon's page of destiny at the risk of serious injuries. Just based on this point, Ziqing was the benefactor of this small family. Even the Mother of Bloodbath had always had a cool temperament. After seeing Ziqing, she hurriedly called out to her. When the Mother of Bloodbath called her Aunt Z, a gentle smile immediately appeared on Ziqing's beautiful face. Ziqing reached out and hugged the Mother of Bloodbath. She said softly, "Little Qing, you've suffered all these years." On one side, Blue Lotus and White Phoenix were waiting for Ziqing's arrival in the Return from Faraway Manor. On the other side, they were also waiting for news from Shueshua. The Pagoda Cannon had yet to appear, which made Blue Lotus and White Phoenix feel that something was wrong. However, the information they had received could not be false. In their opinion, once 2 of the 8 pages of the Pagoda Cannon appeared, with their strength and Hui Yao's Majesty's strength, they would definitely be able to take down these 2 members of the Pagoda Cannon. Furthermore, as long as a few of Hui Yao's Majesties paid attention to protecting the surroundings, even if there were losses, the losses would be very small. Especially now that even Big Sister Ziqing had come. Big Sister Ziqing's strength was above the eternal realm. According to the human language, she could already be called a god. This would undoubtedly be a greater guarantee for the 2 members of the Pagoda Cannon. But where did the people of the Pagoda Cannon go? Could it be that the 2 members of the Pagoda Cannon who came to Hui Yao heard the news in advance and ran away? While Blue Lotus and White Phoenix were thinking about all this, they did not know that someone was sitting in the Spirit Food Pavilion and was even more anxious. 7017K. Chapter 1789. The celebration after the war with the Freedom Federation had already ended. The Star Web live broadcast in the Radiance Sacred Hall had been cut off. It could be said that the entire Radiance 100 sequence test had ended. In the face of Huiyao's celebration, Huiyao's young prodigy defeated the Freedom Federation's young prodigy. He had won glory for Huiyao. Those who came from relatively well-off families all headed for the Spirit Food Pavilion. They were going to have a big meal at the Spirit Food Pavilion to celebrate. These people who came to the Spirit Food Pavilion all found that, in the corner of the hall, an exceptionally righteous-looking man frowned slightly. He did not respond to the middle-aged women who tried to strike up a conversation with him. As he pondered, he looked in the direction of the Radiance Sacred Hall. This middle-aged man with a face full of righteousness was Six-Page Whipping. Sixth-Page Whipping was very clear about his and Second-Page Revival's plan. The Radiance 100 sequence test had already ended, even if he did not release the Black Mass Cup. It was about time for the Second-Page Revival to take action. However, there was nothing unusual in the direction of the desolate arcanum behind the Radiance Sacred Hall. No one was fighting. Even the mountain river set bells of the Huiyao had been put away a long time ago. An hour ago, 6 pages of whip could feel it clearly. The auras of the Freedom Federation's goddess Lian, Na, and Li Su passed over the Spirit Food Pavilion. This meant that the three of them had left. Previously, Lashing the Sixth-Page Army changed their plans without permission and gave the Second-Page Revival a surprise. The Second-Page Revival could be said to have given the Sixth-Page Whipping a surprise. Page 6 now has 3 choices. The first option was to stay in the Radiance Royal Capital for a period of time and observe the changes. Looking at the current situation, doing so would only be a waste of time. Moreover, his target was not Huiyao. Huiyao was just a touchstone. His goal was to help the organization search for the secrets of the Pagoda Canon. Over the past few years, he had lured the Page of Fate into recruiting him. He became the 6th page of the Pagoda Canon. He moved into one of the 8 pagodas of the Pagoda Canon. However, 6 Pages Whip discovered that there was a layer of fog that could not be reached everywhere in the Pagoda Canon. Even though he had become the 6th page of the Tower Canon, he had not been able to truly explore the core secrets of the Tower Canon. When the first Page Fate died, the 6th Page Whip was waiting for the Pagoda Canon's reaction. But who would have thought that after the Fate Page died, the Crimson Page would appear? Moreover, Renaissance Second Page seemed to know Scarlet First Page. He resolutely completed every task Scarlet Page gave him and addressed Scarlet Page as Lord, just like a servant. This made 6 Pages Whip immediately realize that something was wrong. Without his help this time, if the Second Page Revival clashed with the Radiance Federation, there was an 80% chance that it would perish. The 6th Page Whip was to see if the so-called Crimson Page would come to help the 2nd Page Whip. At that time, Crimson Page 1 and Renaissance Page 2 would wage an all-out war against Radiance. Naturally, the secret could no longer be hidden. The second option was to whip 6 pages and return to the Pagoda Canon with his current identity. However, the 6th Page Whip was unable to ascertain whether the 2nd Page of Revival had encountered an accident or had returned to the Pagoda Canon due to his disappearance. If something happened to the 2nd Page of Revival, he would return to the Pagoda Canon and give a reasonable explanation. He shouldn't be suspected. However, if the 2nd Page of Revival had returned to the Pagoda Canon, then going back would be akin to walking into a trap. This caused the 6th Page Whip to fall into a dilemma for a moment. As for the third option, it was to whip 6 Pages Whip back to his original organization. He would return to his identity as Treasure Sword 4. However, if he did that, all the meticulous disguises he had put into the pagoda cannon and everything he had done would be useless. Just as the sixth page whip was preparing to head to the pagoda cannon and take a gamble, Six Page's whip's phone rang again. The sixth page whip knew that his phone was ringing. It must be someone from the organization calling him. After picking up the phone, the sixth page whip heard a gentle female voice on the other end of the phone. "Ah sure. You have been exposed in the pagoda cannon. Come back immediately. This is the captain's decision." The sixth page whip pondered for a long time. "Shikai, how did the captain know that I have been exposed in the pagoda cannon?" Shikai's code name in the organization was Pagoda. She was in charge of internal communication for all the members. It was impossible for Shikai to release fake information to trick him back to the organization. For Shikai to say this, it must mean that the organization already had the relevant information. The woman on the other end of the phone saw that no one objected to her calling him Ashua this time. She immediately knew that it was the man on the other end of the phone. She also wanted to return to the organization. Shikai said softly, "Ashua, I know you have been hiding in the pagoda cannon for 40 years and you are unwilling to give up, but this is the news from the judgment team. Also, if you don't go out to carry out missions, you can return to your original code name Justice. You don't need to call yourself Treasure Sword 4 anymore. From today onwards, the sixth page cannon has nothing to do with you." Shikai's words made the man's face, which was full of justice, show a moment of surprise. Shikai said that the news came from the judgment team. Judgment was also the code name of one of the members of the organization. This meant that he was not the only member of the organization hiding in the pagoda cannon. The man thought about it again and again, but he couldn't figure it out. Who in the eighth page cannon could be the person in the organization with the code name Justice? The man hadn't heard of the code name Justice for more than 40 years. Since he couldn't return to the pagoda cannon, the man didn't insist. He stretched his body, revealing the perfect lines of his muscles. The eyes of the middle-aged women around him lit up. The man's furrowed brows silently relaxed. "Shikai, tell the captain that Justice is tired and wants to take a break. Report back in 2 months and tell the captain not to miss me." After speaking, the man stood up. He used this face of justice to throw a coquettish glance at the middle-aged women beside him. He left the spirit food pavilion without looking back. He blended into the crowd and disappeared. The woman named Shikai on the other end of the phone heard a tone that she hadn't heard for more than 40 years. The indifference in the tone made Shikai know that Justice from 40 years ago had returned. It was just in time for the organization to make a big move in 2 months. When Justice returned, he would be able to make it in time. At that moment, outside the Radiance continent, in the sky above the sea region not far away, at that moment, in the sky above the sea region not far away from the Radiance continent. At that moment, outside the Radiance continent, in the sky above the sea region not far away, the triangular position was like 3 sides facing each other. They were in a triangular position, as though 3 sides were facing each other. They didn't dare to make any noise in the Fey carriage at the side. Only a youth with short silver hair was frowning and observing the situation outside the Fey carriage. At the same time, he was trying to communicate with the contract in the depths of his mind that had been disconnected. 7017K. Chapter 1790. Na had already dispelled her greater devil form. He looked at Lian Shen with a sharp gaze and said coldly, "Compassion Goddess, what did you mean when you were in the Radiance sect just now?" Hearing this, Lian Shen swung her golden-red fishtail. A huge golden-red wave appeared out of nowhere and crashed toward Na. Na pulled out a white bone blade that looked like it was carved out of ivory to block the golden-red stream of water that Lian deity had casually unleashed. Na, watch your tone when you talk to me. You are not a god yet. If you want to cross this step, your luck will only be good in 1 or 2 years. But if you're unlucky, it's not impossible to be stuck for 8 to 10 years. First, I have to teach you to be obedient. Mirror God and Foolish God can do whatever you want, but that doesn't mean I can. Secondly, as the leader of the Freedom Federation, you broke the rules. In less than a month, all the Federation with Class 5 Creation Masters will receive the news. When we go back and worship in the Temple of Liberty. Not just me, the others will also want an explanation from you. Thirdly, I'm interested in the dimensional gem you obtained from the swamp world. You rejected me at that time. I didn't snatch it from you because I gave you face. But now you're giving it to the Radiance Federation as compensation. Are you provoking me? As she spoke, the god of pity turned to Li Su and asked. Li Su, you are the leader of the team this time. After I came here, have I done anything to harm the Freedom Federation? Li Su did not know what to say. Everything Goddess Lien said made sense, but this method was completely out of line with Goddess Lien's style. However, there was still a huge gap in strength between him and Goddess Lien. Furthermore, a large portion of his creation master resources came from the pity goddess. Therefore, even though Li Su knew that the goddess of pity was targeting Na Na, and intended to let Na Na shoulder all the blame, she did not care. Li Su had no choice but to agree. Compassion Goddess, you really haven't done anything to harm the Freedom Federation since you arrived. Instead, it was Na Na who broke the rules of the duel. When Na Na heard this, her charming face began to distort. She was so angry that she couldn't help but giggle. Na Na had always understood what it meant to have a bigger fist. But Na Na had never received such treatment. Everyone was a part of the Freedom Federation, even though everyone was secretly scheming behind the scenes. But on the surface, they could at least maintain a harmonious atmosphere. But now, Goddess Lien had directly shed all pretense of cordiality and used her strength to suppress him. Na Na said coldly. Of course I wouldn't dare to provoke the Goddess of Compassion. When we reach the Temple of Liberty, I will give everyone an explanation for what I've done. Na Na came to Luo's side as she spoke. With Luo in tow, he teleported to the Freedom Federation. When Li Su saw Na Na leave, he thought that the matter had come to an end. He didn't expect the Compassion Goddess to suddenly fire at him. Li Su, because of your foolish plan, my beloved Qian Yu died in the duel with Hui Yao. Who was the one who told me that there would be no mistakes in this duel? If it wasn't for your suggestion to drag down a few of Her Holiness's disciples, this wouldn't have happened. Yan Ling, Kaihua, Yu Changjian, and the people behind Han Qi are probably waiting for you to give them an explanation. You know better than me how much Du Miao values Han Qi and who has the best relationship with Du Miao. I heard that Du Miao and Han Qi's blood can merge. Do you know about this? At this moment, Li Su finally understood what Na Na had felt. Li Su had no way of answering the Compassion God's questions. This was because Li Su was very clear that upon returning to the Freedom Federation, he was destined to face the censure of many people. At that time, they would have to pay a huge sum of resources. Li Su cupped his hands at the Goddess of Mercy and said, Mercy Goddess, I'll take my leave first. When we return, I will give everyone an explanation. Han Qi's skills were inferior and he died in battle. I think Du Miao can understand. As he spoke, Li Su steered the Fey vehicle and brought the 3 elders and 4 Liberal 100 sequence members toward the direction of the Freedom Federation. A smile finally appeared on Lian Shen's face as she remained where she was. Lian Shen happily swung her tail twice, then clapped her hands. Na Na and Li Su had been driven away by him. This way, it would be easier for him to return to the Radiance Federation and complete his plan. Of course, before that, he had to meet the Moon Empress and the Radiance Federation's elder. Lin Yuan was walking on the street with Lu Jie, preparing to return to the return from faraway mansion. After the Radiance 100 sequence test ended, everyone went back to recuperate. They agreed to meet at Lin Yuan's place for a meal 2 days later. Lin Yuan still remembered when he had checked Lu Jie's sacred source life form, the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core. The 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's second function, Emperor Recovery, was when the Insect Queen consumed a large amount of vitality. This vitality could be used to guide the Insect Queen's genetic model and awaken the Insect Queen's genes. It was applied to the ultimate weapon and descended in the form of the Insect Queen. After the Queen's form disappeared, the dimensional life form that fused with it would receive a trace of the Queen's blessing. The quality of this blessing would increase according to the Insect Queen's form and the length of time it was maintained. In order to assist the Insect Queen, Lin Yuan had used a sword skill, Forest Transformation Deer Strike. It had squeezed out all the vitality energy in the vitality imprint. Such a large amount of vitality energy was very difficult to replicate. With such a large amount of vitality energy, the Insect Queen's form was maintained for more than 1 minute and 30 seconds. Therefore, as an insect species life form, the Insect Queen's blessing should be very good. Lin Yuan asked Lu Jie, "Big brother Lu, how is the Insect Queen now? Did the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's blessing increase the Insect Queen's combat ability? Did the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's blessing increase the Insect Queen's combat ability?" Lu Jie and Lin Yuan were both wearing face masks. After all, they had just finished the Radiance 100 sequence test, and Lu Jie and Lin Yuan were very popular now. In such a situation, not wearing a face mask was very likely to cause traffic congestion. Lin Yuan was wearing a face mask, and his words sounded dull as usual. However, when he heard it in Lu Jie's heart, it made him sink into a wonderful feeling. Every time he was in danger, Lin Yuan was his salvation. He could always believe in Lin Yuan. After the Insect Queen released its fusion with the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core, it fell into a deep sleep. However, as the Insect Queen's contractor, Lu Jie could feel the changes in the Insect Queen's condition. The changes in the Insect Queen's condition made Lu Jie exceptionally happy. It could be said that the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's blessing had increased Lu Jie's strength. It was not inferior to the previous time when the Insect Queen had obtained the Blade Queen Bee's poison and mutated. 7017K. Chapter 1791. The Sacred Source Lifeform, Myriad Insect Queen's Blessing, targeted the Insect Queen's reproductive cavity. It enhanced the Insect Queen's reproductive ability. The Insect Queen itself was a unit that relied on producing insect-type creatures and relying on insect-type creatures to fight. It could be said that the more insect-type lifeforms the Insect Queen produced, the stronger the Insect Queen's combat ability would be. One had to know that every time they were able to produce a few more insect units, the entire insect swarm would have more changes in their combinations. Furthermore, the Insect Queen's reproductive cavity would transform after receiving the blessing. Not only would it allow the Insect Queen to produce more insect-type lifeforms, but it would also allow the Insect Queen to produce insect-type lifeforms faster. It would be able to produce a large number of insect-type lifeforms in an extremely short period of time. The Insect Queen was still in a deep slumber and had yet to awaken. Therefore, Lu Jie was unable to summon the Insect Queen and let it produce insect-type lifeforms. He wanted to see how much the Insect Queen's production speed had increased. However, through Lu Jie's perception, the Insect Queen's production speed had increased by at least 50%. This meant that the Insect Queen could produce 3 insect-type lifeforms while producing 2 insect-type lifeforms previously. Such an improvement allowed Lu Jie's insect swarm to form faster. It also allowed Lu Jie to not completely rely on positional warfare to fight. In fact, Lu Jie would not compare these improvements to the Insect Queen's mutation after absorbing the Blade Queen Bee's toxins. The insect queen's mutation after absorbing the blade queen bee's toxins had allowed it to control insect-type carcinoma phase through these toxins. It had formed a special contract with the insect-type carcinoma phase. It was the insect queen's improvement that allowed Wuxia, who was originally in the middle echelon of the Radiance 100 sequence, to be on par with Zhongzhe, Gulang, and He, and the others. Wuxia compared the insect queen's current improvement to the previous one. This was because the insect queen's contracted source-type life form, the cocoon of evolution, had been rooted in the insect queen's reproductive cavity. The cocoon of evolution had absorbed more than half of the insect queen's blessing. The cocoon of evolution had mutated, and the insect queen's corresponding 5 gene fragments had all been enhanced. The cocoon of evolution had also reserved a portion of energy. It was obviously reserved for the last insect-type Fey or insect-type source-type life form that Wuxia had not let the insect queen absorb. All this while, the insect queen had not had any diamond abilities. It wasn't that Wuxia didn't want to upgrade the insect queen. The stronger the insect queen, the more types of insect species phase gene fragments it could obtain. It could be said that among all the insect queen's skills, the diamond rank skill was the one that could increase the insect queen's strength the most. Due to the Freedom Federation's envoys, Wuxia was prepared to choose an insect species Fey with extremely powerful single-target attacks before the Radiance 100 sequence competition. This would allow the insect queen to obtain gene fragments and turn them into the insect queen's diamond tier skill, which would increase its strength in battle. However, just as Wuxia and Lin Yuan were discussing it, Lin Yuan rejected it. He knew very well that Wuxia had never let the insect queen solve the problem of the diamond abilities. This was because Wuxia had never had a suitable choice. Wuxia only had one Fey, the insect queen. Once a decision was made, there was no way to regret it. Moreover, Wuxia's insect queen was already sufficiently complete. Since he hadn't figured out which path he should take, he had to keep the diamond skill slot open. This battle had made Wuxia realize his own shortcomings. When facing a powerful opponent, the insect swarm could only forcefully drag it out. Once the opponent had the ability to recover, the insect swarm would be helpless. Han Qi, who had fought against Lin Yuan in the general slaying battle, could be said to be a natural counter to Wuxia with a treasured artifact. Therefore, Wuxia planned to use diamond skills that could limit the healing effect of his opponent while maintaining his single-target attack power. With a clear direction, Wuxia immediately had many excellent choices to choose from. Under the blessing of the source-type life form, the cocoon of evolution, Wuxia's insect queen's 5 existing abilities had all transformed. If it was someone else, even if it was Zhongzhe, Gulang, or Gao Feng, who had become friends with Wuxia, Wuxia wouldn't say anything. Wuxia wouldn't say anything. However, in the face of Lin Yuan's question, Wuxia definitely wouldn't hide anything. Lin Yuan, the insect queen's current combat ability has at least doubled compared to before. The blessing obtained by the insect queen is an increase in reproductive function. The cocoon of evolution that happened to be rooted in the reproductive cavity has also evolved because of this blessing. All 5 of the insect queen's abilities have greatly mutated or improved compared to before. It's just that the insect queen is still asleep, so I can't determine through actual combat how much better the produced insects are after the changes in the abilities. Lin Yuan's face immediately revealed a look of joy. He treated Wuxia as a brother. Lin Yuan was very happy that Wuxia's insect queen could obtain such a great opportunity. It had to be known that the myriad insect emperor core could only bless each insect-type life form once. The next time the insect queen combined with the sacred source life form, the myriad insect emperor core, it would no longer receive the blessing. Lin Yuan was very afraid that the blessing this time would not hit the nail on the head. For example, the insect queen was a fairy source-type life form that relied on summoning insect swarms to fight. If the blessing strengthened the insect queen's body, it could be said to be exceptionally useless to the Insect Queen. Firstly, the Insect Queen was in charge of producing insect units in battle and couldn't go forward for close combat. Fairy Source-type lifeforms' bodies were fragile. Even if it was enhanced, it could not compare to the physique of Power Offense-type phase of the same grade. Secondly, the Insect Queen hid among the insect swarms and was protected by layers of insect swarms. The Insect Cancer phase that Wuxia summoned would also protect the Insect Queen. For example, the demonic flower gas shield bug that had constantly landed on Lin Yuan during the team battle. The Insect Queen was protected by layers of defense, and if the enemy could break through its defenses, no matter how strong the Insect Queen's physique was, it would still be killed by the enemy. Big Brother Lu, congratulations. Looking at the heartfelt smile on Lin Yuan's face, Wuxia felt as though the sun had risen. His improvement this time was still entirely due to Lin Yuan's help. Without Lin Yuan, Wuxia didn't think that he would have the qualifications to metamorphose. If Lin Yuan hadn't suddenly awakened during the battle with the phaseless beast, even if he had ultimately won against the Freedom Federation, because of the Insect Queen's declining reproductive functions and the loss of vitality, he was destined to become a cripple. In Wuxia's heart, Lin Yuan was his salvation. He was willing to transform into a shield and a sword to protect the light. 7017K. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.